Hey guys, we're coming back at you again today here on the Movie Discussion Pocket Dimension, where time does not exist and the only thing that matters is film. I'm Jay, this is Cole, and today
Yep.
we're going to be discussing A Most Violent Year from 2014. This is one that Cole had recommended to me, and yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit. So we can go ahead and get into it.
Yeah, I saw this when this was sort of new on video, so probably sometime in 2015. It's one of the last movies I ever physically rented because up until August of 2016, I did have an operating video store in my area, which I loved very much and stuff, and probably took for granted. And I don't know, I don't remember exactly how I first found out about the film. Sometimes I would go to Apple trailers and look at random trailers and stuff. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if that was it or something. But anyway, I'd done some reading about it and it sounded pretty interesting to me. So it was a movie I was sort of anticipating. And then it had sort of a limited theatrical run. It wasn't a big thing. It came out, I think, on the last day of and then didn't run for very long. And within only a couple of months, I think it was March or April, I'd already rented it. And at the time, I was sort of disappointed in it
Mm-hmm.
because it wasn't what I was expecting it to be. Because I had read about it and stuff in A Most Violent Year, 1981, and they're talking about how in New York City that was maybe statistically the year with the most crime, right at the height of New York being a very crime-filled city in the 70s and 80s, with all sorts of stuff going on and chaos at times. If you look up the statistics and stories about it, it just sounds wild. It must have been crazy to live in those times where there's a violent crime happening every 10 minutes or something, and too much stuff for the police to even get to. And this movie explores sort of a different angle of it, one that I wasn't expecting at the time. So when I first saw it, I felt a little disappointed, but then when I had more time to think about it, I really started to like it. And then I was thinking about it again lately when we were talking about things when Jay and I discussed things to do for this show and stuff, and I thought of it. And in rewatching it again just recently, it really does sort of reaffirm the opinion I eventually formed of it, as it is a very strong movie, even though it wasn't what I was expecting it to be when I first heard about it. It has a lot going for it.
Yeah, for a
By
film
writer director,
titled,
I was just gonna say J.C. Chandor was the writer director. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, for a film called A Most Violent Year, it's really not a lot of violence in the movie, compared to similar type films like you would expect. But I was kind of going into it knowing that, the way you had kind of talked about it. So,
Yeah, I was expecting more of a focus on street crime or gang activity,
mm-hmm.
or maybe even the police angle. There's no police angle here. This all follows one protagonist. Like I said, it's interesting though because you understand why it's called that, because it sort of explains one of the things the trouble this character's going through is just it's not really that serious in comparison to a lot of the stuff that was happening. So you understand why the police don't seem very interested in helping him out and stuff like that, because there's all this terrible violent crime going on, murders, assaults, rapes, and stuff. And I think it's sort of a good snapshot of how all the other stuff can just get lost in the shuffle. And that's
Mm-hmm.
sort of what we've got going on here. But yeah, written and directed by director J.C. Chandor, who the film, what is it? All Is Lost, the sailing
Right.
film, and he hasn't done another film since. He's got a couple things in production, and I'm sort of eagerly anticipating because I like his style. I think he has sort of a good eye. I think he's a good storyteller, and I really like the way this film comes together. It's sort of a slow burn. You could say parts of the movie are slow, but I don't think any of it's ever boring or dull. It's all, at least for me, it all really arrested. It all really grabbed my attention, and a lot
Mm-hmm.
of that's helped too. But some very strong performances. Jessica Chastain's in there. I've often said that she's maybe my favorite actress working today as far as just pure performance and acting ability. And she's opposite an actor named Oscar Isaac,
See,
who
I
is our
think
main
this film
character.
gained some popularity after the new Star Wars movie was released, Force Awakens. So, because, all of a sudden Oscar Isaac's in everything.
Is he the guy that plays Poe Dameron?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that you say it, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, he's of Guatemalan descent.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he's Guatemalan American, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I didn't make the connection for a long time that he was Poe, because he's such a different character in this. He's such a driven and serious
Mm-hmm.
character.
Yeah, it's almost hard to recognize completely different characters. He like never cracks a smile in this film.
Mm-hmm.
He's always so serious about everything. But it's
I guess Javier Bardem was originally going to have the role, and then it changed. He would have been okay too, because he has some of that ability and stuff. But I think he'd be a little too old.
I agree.
This guy's supposed to be kind of like an up and comer, so the idea that he's more like around 40, makes sense to me more so than like a more older, established guy. So I think it works from that angle. But I mean, obviously they wanted somebody of sort of like a Hispanic sort of background, whether it's Guatemalan or whatever.
Well, he's an immigrant, right? From I don't know if it says where he's from, but he's not.
No, it doesn't say. Yeah. And I think that's important because this is one of the many, many, many movies out there that analyzes the idea of the American dream from a certain angle.
Yeah.
There's tons of movies where you can, where that's basically the idea, and they're all very different from each other because everybody has their own version of it, everybody has their own ideas about it, and everybody has their own struggles. So it's just, one more, but it's a pretty good one, I think, because it's sort of like, we have a character who always presents himself as like moral and hardworking and stuff, but you do see cracks here and there, and you do see that he is willing to make compromises, but it's more because reflective of the world that he lives in. It's it's like either I bend the rules a little or I can't get anything done type thing.
It's very interesting because you've got a guy who has very strong morals, and he's in a lot of circumstances not willing to compromise. And you've got everyone else just trying to bring him down the entire movie. It's really kind of hard to watch. It's kind of, you're kind of just watching, like, it's not pleasant because, everyone else has guns. They're killing each other with guns, and he's so determined to not use guns, which is probably the smart move because, he probably would have wound up dead at the end of the movie, if he had, so.
Yeah, you feel his mounting frustration as the movie goes because it all opens with him on the precipice of making this deal that would, elevate his business and get him to the next level. Right. The thing he's been working for the last 5 years, he says, and he has like a deadline to come up with the money for this sale, and everything just starts to go wrong all at once, and he's forced to, have to ask for help from people he'd rather not ask for help from, and he's forced into, these morally compromising situations and stuff. He feels pressure from his own wife, who being the daughter of some low-level gangster, is like pressuring him to just do it sort of the dirty way and maybe resort to violence and stuff because she grew up in that and saw how that works.
Yeah. He when he originally sets the deal up, buying the property, he has he's talked to the bank, like the loan is good, he's good for the money, but all the FCC allegations and the lawsuits pending and the federal charges against him, the bank defaults on that loan.
Yeah. So and that's the other thing that hovers in the background of the movie is like he acts like all that's baseless, but you don't really know. You think maybe some of it is legit, but you also think he's the type of guy that, again, he just sort of rationalizes certain things. He's like, well, maybe I had to bend the rules here and there, but it was the only way. So I don't think he is 100% legit the way he tries to say he is, and you see he definitely isn't, but it's more like what he's forced to do. It's, again, it's sort of like compromising because it's like being again, it's just a very difficult, dirty world, so he can't be completely clean in it, but he's just doing the best he can. And it's something he says at the very end of the movie where he says, like, he always, like, tried to do the best thing or the best choice or whatever. But by best, it's, it's a little ambiguous, or the most right thing. That's what he says, the most right thing. Not the right thing, the most right thing, which I think is a very interesting qualifier because it's almost like, well, there's right, and then there's the most right, because he has to take into consideration other factors and stuff. So it's an interesting journey of this character and his idea of success and hard work and integrity, surrounded on all sides by corruption and violence and stuff. Because on the one hand, at first, like the first time I watched the movie, at first I wasn't having too much sympathy for him. Like, well, it's clear to me you don't always operate above the board, and you're willing to do this. But watching it the second time, you really do. At least for me, I really did start to sympathize with him a lot more. I'm like, he really is trying his best here. It's,
Yeah. He wants to do right. It's just the world that forces him.
Yeah.
The world he lives in.
But yeah.
And his wife has been skimming the whole time. So.
Yeah. Which turns out winds up helping him.
Yeah.
In the end, but he's not happy about it. But and again, at first you just think she's like sort of this annoying, pressuring wife and stuff. But then you also realize that she's behind a lot of his success. That she's actually very shrewd in business, and that while as annoyed as he was that she'd been skimming and stuff, it turns out sort of saving them. And she said that was the only reason she did it. She wasn't doing it out of greed or anything like that. She just felt like the fact that he was trying to play by the rules and do everything the right way was going to fail, so she felt like she had to take precautions against that in case they ever needed some sort of bailout, and that is ultimately what winds up happening and helping him make the deal, which the whole movie sort of hinges on.
Oh man, you know what?
Yeah.
Oscar Isaac and Albert Brooks were both in Drive also.
I knew Albert Brooks was. Oscar Isaac's in Drive?
He was the guy that was in prison. He was
the boyfriend.
Or husband.
Oh, yeah, the husband. Wow. He looks really different in that one.
Yeah, he does. He has a really odd name.
Yeah, I know who it is, though.
Shit. Anyway.
Hector? No, I don't know. But, yeah, okay. But, yeah, Albert Brooks is in this, which is amusing. He's
I love Albert Brooks.
He's his lawyer. And, they've been together a long time. Sort of close friend. You see this in some movies where they've got sort of a close personal relationship and stuff. And he flips between being like sort of, you can tell that he's sort of proud of him, but he's also a bit exasperated too, because I think there's times where he's probably advised him to try like the easier way or the maybe not so legal way, even though he is the lawyer. Because again, this is about sort of the world they're living in and the choices some people are forced to make because of circumstances and stuff. And, you see a bit of his exasperation too, like because he's so stubborn in about how he wants to get this done. So what we've got is he runs an oil company, like oil for home heating. So he has like a fleet of trucks that do deliveries and stuff like that to people, to their homes. And the movie centers around how his trucks start getting stolen. That the armed gunmen would approach his trucks in traffic and hijack them and take off with them, and then sell the fuel to who knows, but obviously his competitors, as we find out. And it's about how that's coming at like the worst possible time because he needs the money to finish this deal, which would get him this facility, which is right on the water, which would really expand his business because then he could get shipments directly off the water without having to have that delivered to him. And also there's a lot of storage. And as he says, he explains in the movie, for somebody like me that doesn't think about this sort of thing because I'm not a business type person at all, he says, now that means in the summer months when it's cheaper, I can buy it and store it so that when the winter comes and it's time to sell, I have a lot stocked up and stuff. Yeah. So some business stuff in here, which is, it's not too over my head, but there's definitely some stuff that like somebody like me, I don't know what's going on. Like when he asks one of his old competitors, the old man who gave the business to his granddaughter, and he wants the loan, and she explains the terms of the loan. Like I don't know what's going on there. I don't know. All I know is that obviously, it's pretty fortuitous for them. The parameters of it are obviously pretty steep, but he has to do it. Yeah, like I didn't really fully grasp, but the broader point was got across to me. But yeah,
he's getting screwed, but he needs the money. So,
but he needs it. Yeah, like terms like equity and stuff like that, they're never things that I've grasped too well. If there's ever been a blind spot in what I think is my great vast swath of like having knowledge about all sorts of subjects, it's like economics. My understanding and knowledge of economics is very subpar.
Yeah, not exactly the most entertaining thing.
No,
it's rather boring. Yeah.
But it's practical. I mean, people who have a good understanding of it can do well in life and stuff, though not always. Again, that's sort of one of the things like that the movie pushes too. Is just like, again, you can be successful if you are willing to, take certain risks, or if you're willing to maybe stoop to certain levels and stuff like that. And there's a little bit of a contrast in where the first driver that gets hijacked, you know, and he's just saying about how he wanted better for himself, and he's like, I don't understand. So in all this, you're going to get everything you want, and look at me, I have nothing, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, so that's where the movie starts, with these trucks being hijacked and stuff, and the leader of the Teamsters union or whoever they are and stuff is saying, well, the solution to this would be to arm your drivers. And he's just saying, well, would that be legal? And he'd be like, legal enough type thing. And he's not comfortable with it. He doesn't want anything that can jeopardize the legitimacy of his business, you know. And he's right. You know, arming the drivers isn't exactly a solution. The first time that happens, even though it's not under his permission, like, it just happens, and it is the same driver from before, who's very unlucky. But as soon as he goes back on his first thing after that, he gets hijacked again. But this time he's got a gun without permission. And it, of course, it doesn't really help anything. It just leads to a sort of like shootout that could have been even worse. Like, people could have been hurt and stuff. So you can see all the reasons why, like, arming the drivers really wouldn't be much of a solution. It could just cause all sorts of things. Like, imagine one of his driver was like trying to defend himself and just shoots like some innocent bystander in a car, you know? So.
Well, it's become so rampant that, you know, they're just trying to look for a solution. But I mean, look what happens when, you know, he has a gun and what's his name, Abel. He didn't even know about, you know, the guy having the gun, but turns out he tries to shoot these guys, and then all three of them just run from the cops because he's got a, you know, an illegal gun. Because in New York City they're pretty, you know, hardcore about permits and stuff. So, you know, he would be, you know, he would go to jail just like the other two guys would.
Yeah, it is funny because, yeah, one thing they're fighting against each other, then they're just on sort of almost on the same side.
Yeah, exactly.
And the second guy that runs by is just like, you better run, cuz. Because he knows, like, you can't, you're in almost as much trouble as we are.
But, you're totally right to the liability of having a armed driver.
And again, it's funny, sort of the absurdity of it is they're attacking him, but the whole point was the guns are only supposed to be for show. Nobody's supposed to get shot. Although the first time he got attacked, they did beat on him and send him to the hospital, pistol whipping him and stuff, which is terrible. But still, their idea was never for there to be any shooting. And when he starts shooting at them, they're like, "What are you doing? There's people here," and stuff like that. And it's like, you're the one robbing him, but yeah.
I don't blame the guy though. He was terrified. He was like shell shocked from his first time getting.
Sure, he was not ready to go back out there, which you could say is one of the oversights that Abel makes. Like, he should have been able to tell that he wasn't ready to go back to work, but again, he's just so focused on his vision, and he just assumes like anybody that works for me has to be like me. You know, it's like, and he's so obsessed with getting the job done. He's like ready to go back to work. Like, he can't really accept it in somebody, and so the other guy knows this. He's probably been his boss for a while. He knows he can't say, I probably need a little more time or something. He's just like probably, worried about keeping his job. So he's like, yeah, I am. Because we see a guy that has a very singular vision, and to the point that it's a tunnel vision. It sort of blocks everything out, and he doesn't understand that. Because there's a really great pivotal point in the movie where his lawyer Brooks is talking to him. And he's talking about like his frustration and stuff, and about how good it will be when the overall plan gets. And he's just like, "Well, why do you want this?" And he's just like, "What do you mean?" And I already explained why I want this. He says, "No, but I mean, why do you want, you know, all this?" Because he meant like, you're already successful type thing. And he's just like, "I don't know what you mean." Like, he didn't understand the question, because he's that type of driven person where, like, even if he reached a point where, you know, he's financially set for life or whatever, there's always another level to get to. And that's very much true. And that's what a lot of the millionaires and billionaires in our world are like. Like, they keep playing the game long after they don't have to, because it's what they know, it's what they're good at. And to them, it keeps them going. And on one hand, it's admirable. On the other hand, people could say it's greedy. I don't know. It's a whole thing, right? But I mean, there's plenty of people out there. And you see it in criminals too.
Well, I mean, it's like gambling addiction, you know. You're going for that high. You're trying to close on a good deal, you know, something like that. Make more money.
Yeah. Right. This man, again, he's very much following what he thinks are the principles of the American dream. America's land of opportunity. If you work hard, you can come out on top and you can succeed. And he has a great work ethic and stuff like that. But at the same time, he'll sacrifice other things because his, you know, his vision is so big. And he just, like, he knows that, His vision is so singular, and he's constantly disappointed by the people around him because he doesn't think they're as driven or good as he is and stuff. And that's what he's trying to explain to the driver at one point, like when they're talking about how it's scary to get robbed. He's just like, they're cowards and they're weak. They don't know how. He's like, they don't know how to, make money for themselves, so they resort to this. It's like, well, in principle, that's sort of true, but it doesn't really make you feel any better when you know that if you're going to go out there, men with guns are coming at you. But where he says, I was scared. Don't you ever get scared? He says, the only thing that scares me is failure. So he's a difficult guy to get through to on that side because he's just so driven to succeed, and that he just doesn't really take into account other factors like that, which is definitely a failing.
One of the things that kind of opened his eyes a little bit was when someone broke into his house, his new house that he just moved into, and kind of scared his family and left a gun in the yard too, which I don't know if that was intentional or not, but one of his daughters finds the gun and she's kind of playing with it like it's a toy.
Yeah.
And that'll wake you up a little bit.
Yeah, it's a bit of a wake up call, and his wife yelling at him and saying,
Yeah, it's understandable.
Yeah, you understand it.
I mean, that's what makes her go buy a gun.
Yeah.
Or is it the same gun? I'm not sure. But
no, it's a different gun. It's like a little one of those like girl gun type things.
Okay.
Yeah. She probably already had it. She seems like she probably would have. But remember,
totally.
he gets mad. He's just like, who used this? Whores use this. He gets really mad.
Oh man.
It's funny though, but again, he just sees the gun as sort of a symbol, a symbol of taking the easy way or doing it their way or whatever. So he gets pretty outraged about it.
You got to respect him for that. I mean, that's a pretty honorable thing. Because I mean, how easy would it be to take the the bad route? But the whole scene with the deer is kind of odd. It seems kind of pointless. I mean, it's just to show that she has the gun, basically. But
well, I guess it's also to show like that her resolve, like she's willing to do what he isn't. He's hesitating. He's not even sure if he's going to finish the deer off with the tire iron. Then she just comes and bang, bang, bang. I guess it's just sort of to illustrate that, she's willing to take that extra step if he isn't.
But I mean, if New York is so violent, crime is running rampant, are you going to stop on the freeway to kill a deer? I mean, it's, I don't know. It seemed kind of unrealistic to me for these rich, bourgeois people to get out of their, Mercedes Benz and do that. But
I suppose. Well, like I said, I guess they really wanted to get that point across about her having the gun and being willing to use it when he's supposedly not willing to, I guess. So maybe that is a little shoehorned in, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, he's under investigation for things like price fixing, fraud, tax evasion, and we never really find out for sure if any of it's legit. And he acts as though it's not. But part of you thinks that maybe some of it is. Like, it's enough to make him worry.
Maybe she's doing it all. Like maybe she's doing all the illegal stuff because she's the bookkeeper.
Right. Well, that's what it is, right? She's obviously done something illegal because when the cops at the warrant to check their stuff in the house, she makes him take all the records boxes outside. He's just like, what? I thought they were fine. And she just says, oh, well, they are, but I haven't had a chance to go over them again. I don't want them finding something. And that's her excuse. She just said, well, yeah, but I don't let them looking at them before I do, just in case there is something, which seems to suggest to me that, oh, yeah, she's definitely done some stuff.
Yeah.
And hidden it from him. But she just says it that way. She's just like, oh, I just in case I missed something or something isn't right, I don't want them looking at it first. And, he's freaked out, but what can you do? So he takes it all out there. But, I like the scenes with him and the DA as they go on. Because it's just mostly him just sort of trying to hold back his, anger the whole time. Like, all his scenes are him just trying to keep it together to be civil because he's so outraged at this situation and stuff and how things keep getting worse for him. And at the same time, he's got the DA looking to his business and stuff. And he keeps trying to, assure him, no, I'm doing this the right way. You're making a mistake. You're going to see and stuff. And it's all just sort of seething. I enjoy it. And that's the other thing you find out by the end is like the guy who is the DA. He's also willing to break or bend the rules to get his way towards the end. I mean, it's heavily implied.
Yeah.
In their final conversation in the movie.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting too. It makes you wonder, man. Like, is it all just dirty? Everyone's dirty. Like,
it does. Like, is everybody cheating at least a little?
I mean, just to get power, you have to,
yeah. And he's
screw some people over to get there, I guess.
Right, and he's an example where he's using a lot of restraint and stuff. And the fact is, all the other people that are his competitors are way worse than he is.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, they never reveal who the person is who's hiring these hijackers, and it's not even important. But it's pretty much understood that plenty of them are buying from them, if not all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it is easy, even if you are a little dirty or whatever like that, to hold yourself up when you know you're surrounded by people that are way worse. And that's what we've got going on here. And as he says at one point, like, all my life I tried not to be a gangster, and part of it was just because of the environment he was in and the options he had.
Right.
Which is true too. It's kind of like the anti-Scarface type thing, where exactly. He's just like, he probably, if you think, if he was like an immigrant that came to the country in maybe the 60s or 70s and wouldn't have had a lot of opportunities for work and stuff like that, you could see that like one of the things staring him in the face would have been to get involved with organized crime. It's like, oh, here, be a drug dealer or be an enforcer and stuff. Climb the ladder and you can do well. And he obviously resisted that. And you wonder how he met his wife, who was part of that world. Like, her father was at least a somewhat important gangster and stuff. So he was obviously surrounded by it all the time, and he resisted it because it's not what he wanted to do. It's not who he wanted to be. And he just had this very clear, singular vision of what he thought the American dream was and how it could be achieved and how he could do it the right way. And despite all this pressure closing in from him. And now we see him, he's around 40 and he has a wife and kids and he's fairly successful, but he's still not satisfied. He really thinks he can take it to the next level and become really, I don't know, powerful and wealthy and comfortable and stuff like that. And just on the precipice of all that, all this stuff starts going wrong. And it's, coinciding with, as it says, a very crime-filled year in the history of the city.
Yeah. I think pretty early on, when they're starting to have problems, she says, "You want me to call my father?" And he says, "No, don't call your father or your brother." Mm-hmm. So that makes you think that her whole family is,
I'd imagine,
in the organized crime one way or another. She really didn't elaborate on that at all, but I guess it didn't really need to. But it does kind of leave you, curious.
Yeah. But I really like his scenes with Jessica Chastain. There's some very strong acting. I think they play off each other really well. There's a lot of intensity there, and you can understand some of the depth of the relationship. Like, they're married, they've been together a long time, they're partners and stuff. But she does have her frustrations with him because even though she knows him very well and stuff, even she can be put off by his stubbornness when it comes to this sort of thing and the singularity of his vision. And how difficult it must be to sort of live with somebody who's like that. Like, it's great when he succeeds because she knows he's doing it for her and the children and stuff, but it's other times it can just be exasperating because he's so unrelenting in his pursuit.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think they mesh well together as a couple because she's kind of like the one that's willing to get stuff done, and he's not.
Yeah, he keeps it legitimate and good on the surface. Yeah, there's a few times, like, a lot of the movie is a series of him meeting with various people that he's trying to establish or maintain business relationships with, and the whole time he's under the strain of the impending deadline and the robberies and stuff like that. And you do feel for him in a lot of those situations because he's really trying to be respectful. He's sincere and to show that he's good for the money and stuff. And some of, the people he's working opposite, they just don't care, or they're kind of disdainful of him and stuff. And And you just sort of see him like seething under the surface, how frustrating it must be.
Oh yeah, they do.
Especially when he goes into the room with all the other guys that I guess own the oil companies and stuff, and tells, and you know, they're smiling through their teeth at him, just saying, "Hey, we don't know what's going on." He's like, and he just knows, like, you guys are all crooks.
Yeah,
You guys are all crooks, and one, if not all of you, are screwing me over here, and you're here just acting, you know, like it's
yeah.
like it's no big deal and stuff. So you really, it's very palatable, his frustration.
Yeah, they do a great job of making the audience feel that stress as well. Because I know I was like, just get a gun and shoot everybody, like a few times in the movie. You know, it seems like that would solve all the problems, but you know, it wouldn't. It would make it worse. But
Right.
you know, at least in the
And I
short
mean,
term.
he does have that moment. He does have that moment where he's in the area driving when he hears about one of the hijackings. So he's
Yeah.
like, tells his driver, "Okay, let them take the truck. I'm there." So he follows the truck. He chases them down and causes them to crash because those big trucks are not very maneuverable and stuff. And he winds up chasing down one of the guys with their own gun. And he's finally got one of them, and he's not answering his questions, and he's hitting him with the pistol, and it's all sort of coming out of him. But even then, he steps back and pulls back. It's like, I can't just kill this guy, as mad as I am, and stuff. And the guy is sort of grateful, and he says, like, well, actually, nobody hired me. And he makes it sound like the hijackers are just sort of in business for themselves, and they just sell it to whoever.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, he does give him a tip. He tells him somebody that he sold to.
And he finds out which guy it was.
And he's able to just extort money from him so that he can put it towards the loan. He goes all over the place to fill up the money that he needs. The weirdest part is probably when you find out he has a brother that's like 20 years younger than him.
Yeah.
Who, like, they both own like an apartment building together. And he manages to, like, get some sort of mortgage deal going with that to get a bit of money. And his brother's a little concerned. He's like, well, why do you need to do this? And he's just like, don't worry about it. But yeah, he's got a much younger brother who seems to be living an okay life, is playing football and stuff. And for some reason, they own an apartment building together. Okay.
Yeah, he's in school somewhere. Did it ever say? Some New York college.
Oh, maybe I didn't notice though. But yeah, he's like on the football team at some college. And he's definitely like in his early 20s or something, quite a bit younger. It's just one scene, but it's just another place where he manages to get a little bit more money as he's trying to put all this money together. So he goes to the old guy and the granddaughter. He goes to his brother. Probably the hardest. He manages to extort from the guy who had stolen from him, because he points out, he just says, you know, if you've been taking my oil, all my stuff is marked. So I can have the feds at your door unless you cut me a check for this amount. But then the other guy is, I don't know, he's like one of the more openly criminal guys, I guess, that's part of the thing. What's his name? I remember the guy's name. Ferrante. And he asked him for $600,000. And that's, again, where he's getting screwed over on the terms of the loan. And he has to, like, leverage his company quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the point where, like, he realizes that it's still not going to work out, and his wife tells him about how she was skimming and had been setting money aside for a situation like this. And at first he's outraged about all this and sees it as stealing from him and undermining everything he's trying to do. But by the next morning, he's sort of calmed down and realized that it's a good thing, and that it's going to save them here. But I really like the movie, the cinematography. I really like how it's shot. Does a really great job of putting you in like early 80s New York, showing you the urban decay and the graffiti and all the dirt and grime and stuff.
Those shots of the skyline are just beautiful too.
Yeah, it's the winter of '81, and it looks.
I don't know if that's CG or not, but it looks really good. I know the Twin Towers are obviously CG, but
oh yeah, I forgot about that. You're right.
It's kind of odd. Now we're at a point where they're putting it in movies when it's not, when it's gone. But for a little while, they were like taking it out of everything. You remember that? That's so weird.
Yeah, because they were just like, making people see it will just make them feel bad or something.
Let's change history.
Yeah.
So I don't get it.
Yeah. It's funny. Like, now that you said you looked up that his name was Standard in Drive. Well, that's the name of his company in this. It's Standard Oil.
Oh, you're right.
That's kind of cool. I don't know if that's a nod to that or whatever. But
I think Oscar Isaac's a pretty good actor, and of course Jessica Chastain, man, she's worth the price of admission right there.
This is probably the first movie where I really noticed her. It was about 2 years ago, and then since then I've been like actively seeking out other things that she's been in and stuff.
I think she was on that show Mad Men, which I never watched. Mad Men.
Yeah, I never watched it either.
I think I saw her in that horror movie Mother, or is that what it was called? Mama maybe.
Yeah, that's a shitty movie.
Yeah.
But she's in she's really good in Crimson Peak, the Del Toro movie. I know some people were let down by the movie, but I really liked it. I mean, it was a bit predictable, but I still really liked it, and she's really good in that.
She was in Interstellar, which I didn't really like that movie either.
I didn't like it either, but I thought she was a lot better than the other woman in that movie who really annoyed me.
Yeah.
She's really annoying. Catwoman.
Oh, yeah. Anne Hathaway.
Yeah, and I don't have any problem with Anne Hathaway usually. I just really don't like her in that movie. She spends like the whole time just sort of like gaping at the camera and being wide-eyed, and I don't know. I just
really don't like the movie at all. It's
I mean, the movie had me for a certain amount, but it got to a point where like they were making choices, or I was just like, really, this is what you're doing, you know? And by the end, I was just like, no. Like the first like hour it's a fairly long movie. The first say hour had me. I was interested. I was engaged in all that stuff. It's Christopher Nolan, so everything looks really good and stuff. I mean, and the music is quite good. So I mean, it had me for quite a long time, and then it just started going in a direction and making choices that I was just like, no way, And yeah, as I said, Anne Hathaway didn't help. I thought she was super annoying. Stuff. I mean, it's a really good-looking movie and stuff, but
Chris Nolan, with the exception of his Batman stuff, I don't really like a lot of his movies. They just don't resonate well with me. I didn't like the what was it, Inception? I didn't like that very much either.
Never watched it. Have no plans to watch it, but I did like The Prestige. You see that?
I did like The Prestige. Yeah.
That's a good movie. I'd like to see that again. It's actually been a few years since I last saw it. I thought that was a really good movie. So I guess he's a bit hit and miss. I still mostly like him because I mean I'll always be happy about the Batman movies and stuff. But we'll see. But like you said, I think he's at a point now where he's receiving just a bit too much praise, and now it's just like whatever he does. But
well, I mean, when Interstellar came out, that's all you heard about for 6 months was how great it is, and I waited probably 3 years to watch it, and I was just
I only watched it like last year.
Yeah, me too. It's I was not pleased. It felt like a waste of my time. And I watch a lot of shitty movies.
Yeah. A movie I saw a few months ago that I thought was so much better than Interstellar was Arrival. Yeah. I thought that was a way better movie. Although I wish, again, not to pick on an actress, but again, I just Amy Adams I can't stand her in serious movies.
Yeah.
At all. I can't take her seriously. And she just looks like she's trying so hard to me. Like she's trying, and like she was in Nocturnal Animals. And again, I just feel like she's just like doing a frowny face through the whole thing, and that's how she's. I don't know. She's just an actress like I don't dislike. I just don't feel like she has much range. I just think she needs to stick to happy-go-lucky things. I just find her she's just like a sweetheart, and I can't see her ever being serious or angry or any of those things.
I mean, it's like Jennifer Lawrence and Scarlett Johansson. It seems like they're in like every movie, and they're miscast all the time. Not that they're bad actresses; they're just miscast.
Yeah, that's what happens with it happens with guys too. So we're not saying it doesn't have actors too, but I mean with these actresses, they're in some really popular movies when they're young, and everyone's like, yeah. And it's more like doesn't have as much to do with their acting ability as, maybe they did fit the character really well. Maybe people thought Jennifer Lawrence was a great Katniss. Sure, fine. I can accept that. I didn't read the books. I don't give a shit. Mm-hmm. Maybe she was a really good Katniss and that kind of stuff. But then, you always see that transition for the next few years getting away from the teeny stuff where they want to do more serious stuff. And it's almost like it's a rush. Like, Jennifer Lawrence is in that movie. Shit, it's set in the 70s.
Yeah, I was talking about.
And she seems to be playing like someone who's like 45 in it.
Yeah.
When she's probably like 24. And like it's like she's trying too hard. Like she's putting on a voice and she's smoking a cigarette. It's like, oh yeah, it's like look at me acting. I can be a serious actor. I'm not attractive. I'm like why was she cast in this? Why didn't you just get a middle-aged woman? Why did you get Jennifer Lawrence? And other people are just easily impressed and like praise that. It's like, oh, look at Jennifer Lawrence. See, she's not like a teeny bopper or pretty face. Look what else she can do. I'm like, maybe, but why? What's the point?
Is that American Hustle? What's the name of that one?
Yeah, it's American Hustle. Like she's like this wisecracking older. I don't know how old she's supposed to be, but she seems to be playing it as old as she possibly can. She's smoking cigarettes and stuff, and she's like, talking to people that should in real life are way older than her and stuff. And like, none of this rings true to me.
Sure.
In real life, you don't see like somebody in their early 20s talking to a bunch of people like in their 40s and 50s as if they're all on the same level. People don't really do that. People do it in movies, but it's not really that realistic. I mean, I don't mean to make a huge deal of age. It doesn't rule everything, of course not. But it does dictate to a certain extent how we interact with each other. And Hollywood loves to make it sound like, oh yeah, this 56-year-old is dating this 22-year-old. They're equals. Like, no, they're not equals. I'm not saying a 56 doesn't date a 22-year-old, but don't think for a second they're equals.
That's like Tom Cruise gets older, but his love interest is always like a 20-year-old, like the platinum blonde.
The chick that played the mummy in that movie was like 24 years younger than him, and she was the ancient mummy.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it either, but I knew that. I've heard. I mean, it's so bad that it halted that whole universe thing, right? They were going to do the Dark Universe. They were going to do a bunch of these Universal monster films and tie them all together. And like that,
if
movie
they
was
were going to
such a flop that like it's dead now. You look up the Dark Universe, it's like, well, it's done. No Dark Universe.
Oh yeah, no, they've cleaned it all out. It's gone. But if they were going to continue with the casting they had laid out, I'm totally okay with them scrapping that whole thing. I don't want to see Johnny Depp.
What else have they had lined up?
Johnny Depp was the Invisible Man, right? I mean, they had them all cast already.
I think so. Yeah, that sounds right.
Like Russell Crowe was going to be like Frankenstein or something. I don't know. Or Frankenstein's monster.
No, Russell Crowe's their Nick Fury. He was their guy to tie everything together. There's like a scene in The Mummy where like he meets Russell Crowe and Russell Crowe like takes him into and he's like, oh, we're a society, blah. It's kind of like the Shield reveal type thing. And while they're walking around the room, you see like things like in tanks and stuff. It's like, oh, look, there's the creature from the Black Lagoon's claw, and stuff like that. So they're really just doing like a Nick Fury Shield thing, right? And they're just like, here's your Nick Fury. What's really funny is like at one point he calls like Tom Cruise a young man. I'm like, you're 2 years older than Tom Cruise.
I want to talk about this because it's so ridiculous, the casting. Okay, let's see. Well, looks like it's not here. Well, Dracula Untold was the first movie.
Yeah, but then they were like, no, that doesn't count. So they already started like a reboot, So this was supposed to be like a reboot. The Mummy. There was going to be a Bride of Frankenstein in 2017 that was pulled.
That was going to be. I think Angelina Jolie was going to play the bride.
Wow, so just all the usual suspects lined up.
Yeah, but terrible casting. I can't find anything on it now.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, they were going to do all the monsters.
It's true that technically before like the Marvel movies started doing what the comics did in time together, Universal did have the first universe. They did because they did do crossovers back in the day. But they were a lot simpler because you had like I remember I watched a movie with Ryan years and years ago. It's only like it's I don't even think it's an hour long. It's called like House of Frankenstein and stuff from the 40s, and it has Frankenstein, Dracula, and the Wolfman all in the same movie and stuff. And they would do that throughout like the 40s and 50s where they would mix them together and stuff. So I get it. They were the originators, I suppose, but
I think it's a great idea. I think it was executed terribly. Like, why would you spend that kind of money? I mean, just for the price that you're paying Tom Cruise, you should have been able to make that entire movie,
Yeah.
but there's just not an audience for those to be big blockbuster films these days. I don't think. If they were done right, I think they could definitely make a lot of money, but they're not going to be $200 million, opening weekend like they're expecting.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think there's an audience for that? I don't think kids care about Universal Monsters.
No, I don't think so. Even I didn't. I knew
fucking-
what they were, but let's say back in the 90s they were going to do this. Like, I wouldn't have been hyped. I would have been like, okay, I really liked the Mummy movie from the end of the 90s, but it's not because I thought, oh, it's a return to all that,
Yeah.
I just thought it was a good movie that reminded me of Indiana Jones. That's why I liked it.
Yeah, it doesn't hold up very well either, but yeah, I liked it then too.
Let's see here. I have something for an old thing that was supposed to be a schedule of the remake. So now I'm reading. I have no idea if this is true or not. If they pushed it back, I don't know when this article's from. I just found an article on Den of Geek, and it's saying February 14th, 2019. Wow, Bride of Frankenstein. I can't imagine. The only official slated Dark Universe movie, Bride of Frankenstein, blah, blah, blah. David Cupp, who contributed to the script for The Mummy and also wrote in 2016's Inferno, apparently turned into a script for the film in 2016, blah, blah, blah. Bill Condon, blah, blah, blah. The lead role is yet to be cast, but it's no secret in the industry that Universal has long been pursuing Angelina Jolie for the role. Javier Bardem, meanwhile, has been perfectly cast in the picture as Frankenstein's monster. Given the pedigree of the original, Bardem, and even likely Condon's affection for that material, we suspect this movie will occur no matter the reception to The Mummy. Now, and they've got a TBA for The Invisible Man, like you said, Johnny Depp, but no actual thing. Wolfman, which again, they made a remake in 2010 that everybody hates, but I kind of like.
I don't like it.
I kind of like it. I mainly like it just because it has a nice gothic setting. I liked that they didn't it was the first werewolf movie I'd seen in 100 years where they didn't just try to stick werewolf in contemporary times. I hate werewolves in contemporary times. I was just happy because it was 19th century, and that's what I just hate seeing werewolves in this world with cars and computers and stuff. I fucking hate it. I want werewolves back in
like Underworld and
19th
stuff?
century. Yeah, I fucking hate that. I think that all sorts of things like vampires transition very well to now, but I don't think werewolves do at all. I just don't like any contemporary werewolf movies.
I don't like that film because I followed the production of that thing for 2 years. All the problems they had, and I was like, oh man, Benicio del Toro, I'm a big fan of him. It's gonna be great. And
nobody tries in that movie. I can tell you that. Benicio del Toro, he's not trying. Anthony Hopkins is totally not trying. The only person who might be trying is what's his name? Hugh
Jackman?
Agent Smith.
No.
Oh shit! I had it on the tip of my tongue. Hugo Weaving. Hugo Weaving might be the only guy that's trying that movie, but he's basically underused. He's barely in it. He's only in a few scenes and stuff. But I'm not going to try to defend the movie. It's a great movie because, like I said, nobody's trying. Everybody just sleepwalks through their lines and stuff. The CG is bad. I give you that.
Yes.
The CG is absolutely bad. So no, the only thing I really like about it is the story and setting. Not saying the execution is good because it's not. Anyway, let's see. So they're still saying there'll be another Wolfman.
I doubt that.
Yeah, they got pretty much. The last they heard was that Aaron Guzikowski, who was the guy that wrote the screenplay for Prisoners, was attached to write this. Supposedly, there still might be a Dracula Untold 2, although I think that's probably dead in the water.
Oh, God, why? I tried to watch that movie. It's fucking god-awful.
These things are probably all dead at this point. I'm just reading a schedule. There's supposed to be a Van Helsing movie.
Yeah.
Who's
going to play Van Helsing?
Which also happened in the 2000s. I don't know.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who would play Van Helsing? Let's see. Gerard Butler. He'd be a great Van Helsing.
You know who it says here?
Who?
You know who that says they're pursuing? Channing Tatum.
Ah, there you go.
Let's see, a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde movie. Oh yeah, that's right. That's who. That's already done. Well, it's not done the movie, but that's who. In the Mummy movie, that's who Russell Crowe is.
Oh, okay.
So
I didn't even know he was in the Mummy movie.
yeah, like I said,
The Nick Fury.
I forgot he was actually somebody, but he's like the Nick Fury because he's like, welcome to our weird secret society, and shows them all the stuff. Just trying to do a Nick Fury Shield scene. But yeah, so I guess the idea would be down the line to do that. And there's even a Phantom of the Opera, which would really make me upset.
Who's going to play the Phantom?
And these ones were so far down the list that probably, by the time everything was canceled, they didn't have anything.
The Rock. The Rock should play the Phantom.
God, and Creature from the Black Lagoon, which is one I really like. I remember a few years ago they were talking about there being a remake by Guillermo del Toro. Like, I was so excited for that, and it didn't happen.
I think that's what he's doing. The Shape of Water is kind of similar monster in there, I think.
Yeah, and there was even going to be a Hunchback of Notre Dame. So pretty much all of them. All of them were in the at least planning stage, but it looks like none of them are going to get anywhere.
Can you imagine if they made all those? Oh, wow.
Oh, here's something from the 14th. Mummy Bride. Dark Universe Explained. It's on a site called digitalspy.com.
That sounds legit.
Who knows? Let's see. Is there hope for the universe yet? Okay, now they're just giving a stupid rehash. Hold on. Just trying to see. Okay, Universal released Dracula Untold in 2014, originally planning for it to be the first film in the Universal Monsters reboot. Critically mauled. They started again with The Mummy, blah, blah, blah. Wait, let me look at the date of this again. Yeah, November 2017. Okay, I'm just making sure I'm looking at like a super old article. Tom Cruise, Nick Morton, blah, blah, synopsis, okay, blah, blah. Slated Darkness, yeah, so a bunch of people left, still in limbo. Linked to it, yeah, linked by an organization called Prodigium, which is run by Hyde, played by Russell Crowe. So that's the name of the stupid organization. Research facility based in the Natural Mystery Exam, set up specifically to identify and destroy. There's been a through line throughout the Dark Universe, with Jekyll acting as something, as it says, the equivalent of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Nick Fury. Sometimes this Bride of Frankenstein will come next. The announcement Dark Universe. Yeah, Bill Condon, the guy that directed the Beauty and the Beast remake. Javier Bardem. Now the studio's done a U-turn, announcing this project would be postponed. After thoughtful consideration, Universal projectors and director Bill Condon decided to postpone Bride of Frankenstein. So right now, they're still saying postpone as late as this month. They're not saying canceled. None of us want to move too quickly to meet blah, 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 blah. Could this be because he recently distanced the film from the Dark Universe? According to Condon, the film is nothing to do with anything else. I tell you this, what I'm doing is 100% making a really good monster movie. It has nothing to do with anything else, nothing, zero. So maybe they wanted to kick him off because he wanted to be standalone or something. Yeah, now they're saying that Angelina Jolie was signed on, but I don't know. Universal currently had 4 more films officially planned, although their status is now very much in the air. And then again, Creature from the Black Lagoon, listed for 2019, Invisible Man 2020. Van Helsing doesn't have a date. And The Wolfman doesn't give a date. So I guess that's the latest stuff, is that it's not 100% dead, but it looks like it.
The Angelina Jolie casting is probably the only one that I could actually see, because I don't like her at all as an actress, but I thought she did a great job in that Maleficent movie. So,
yeah, she's pretty. I mean, I don't like the movie, but she did okay for what she was supposed to do. I mean, I thought it was a stupid angle for the movie, but anyway, yeah, she was pretty good as the character. I'll give her that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was impressed with her work in that.
Here's the biggest casting. In the mid-2000s when she was the it actress, and now she still looked great for her age, but I mean, in the movie she should have done when she was in 2005 or whatever, why didn't they make a Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego movie? She would have been a great Carmen Sandiego. I mean, you could make an easy, fun movie out of that. She's running around the world stealing stuff. I thought she was born to play that role, but the window's closed and I guess nobody cares. And I get it. People are like, really, a Carmen Sandiego movie? I'm like, yeah, look at all the other stuff that's out there. We're making movies off fucking board games.
Yeah, that is true. I wish they hadn't, what's his name? Uwe Boll. I wish Uwe Boll hadn't made Blood Rain movies.
Wish he hadn't made anything.
I used to love Blood Rain.
Wish he hadn't been born. Yeah, cool games. Yeah. Video game movies, I don't really know what the future is for them. People still talk about a Uncharted movie. I don't know. People talk about a Metal Gear Solid movie. Like, none of those things should not happen. Like, I don't get why you would want to watch like a condensing of a much longer experience where you play a completely passive role.
What about a Zelda movie? I mean, I'm surprised they haven't done that.
Because anything that was related to Nintendo has been completely off limits ever since the very first Mario movie bombed. The Mario movie bombed, and Nintendo said, "Okay, lesson learned. We're not touching anything." Yeah, but the one thing is, and it makes sense, and mostly people have praised them for it, but the big movie that people have been begging them for years is Metroid.
Yeah.
You know, again, a few years ago, who's that tall blonde actress from South Africa whose name I constantly forget?
Charlize Theron.
Charlize Theron. She could have been a good Samus. You know, she's tall, athletic, blonde. Not saying an unknown couldn't do her too.
You know who'd be a good Samus is Brienne of Tarth from
Game of Thrones. She's actually prettier when they want her to be. Like, it's amazing how homely they can make her look for the show.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I've looked her up and seen, like, bio pictures, and she looks pretty good.
Yeah, a little bit of makeup goes a long way. On that show, she's, like, covered with dirt most of the time, so it's kind of hard to even tell.
Yeah.
She's, like, her, armor, like, makes her body look all lumpy and stuff, like, not in a good way.
I mean, some amazing casting on that show. She looks like she stepped right out of the books. She really
Absolutely.
does.
Sure.
Just like the character as I read her. So, I mean, you know, we're not going to get into Game of Thrones thing because I gave up on the show during the 4th season. But, I mean, those first 3 and some seasons I just adored. And I understand they had to do what they do. The book stopped. They had to keep going.
I wish you'd go back and try it again.
Yeah, maybe. Because I know all sorts of awesome stuff has happened in 5, 6, and 7. I know.
But you gave up when, in 4?
Yeah, about halfway through 4. Maybe around the 5th or 6th episode of 4. It was just starting to, like, they were just throwing stuff at the walls and seeing what could stick. And it was just so full of coincidences. People that never met keep meeting. People that never had anything to do with each other kept having plots intertwined. It was driving me insane.
Yeah.
And again, the main thing was they did things to Jaime's character that like completely ruined him in my eyes. Like Jaime was one of my favorite characters in the books, and he was one of the great things was like he was like a character who'd done bad things, but not nearly as bad as you think. And now he was sort of on a path of redemption. In the show, he's just fucking awful. He's doing terrible things every 5 seconds. It drove me nuts.
Yeah, as it goes on, he kind of redeems himself quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I know they would still have him following that path, but I mean, he was still doing stuff that was sort of unforgivable. They have him like fucking raping Cersei at one point, for God's sakes.
God, did he have to rape her? I thought she was
into
it.
I mean. Well, that's what I mean. The actual scene in the book is 100% consensual. Like, she says no for a couple seconds, but only because she meant we could get caught. It wasn't like, no, I don't want to. And then she just gives in and that sort of thing. But in the book, they make it like, no, he just has to fucking rape her. And she's all upset and twisted up about it and stuff. I was like, why? But anyway, we're not going to go there.
Well,
and I will, out of morbid curiosity, return to the show just to see what else they did, even though it will just probably bother me.
Well, I'm rewatching it with my wife now, and it's so good. Like I think 5 and 6 are 2 of the best seasons there are. But I haven't read the book, so.
I know, and anybody that's watching this can say, well, you know, you can't just judge it all by the books, and you're shooting yourself in the foot. I understand that, because that's true. And the show has, like I said, the book stopped. It had to do what it had to do. It had to keep going and stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm more mad at J.R.R. Martin than anybody else. It's like, why are you dragging your feet on this book? And now, like, I was so happy a few years ago when I was reading the books, when I thought I figured out, like, who Jon Snow's actual parentage was, and then they used the exact thing I guessed in the show, and I was just like, oh well, now, and it just sort of ruined it for me in a way, because it's like either that's what it was all along and they're just spoiling it for me, or it's going to be actually something different in the books and I'm going to feel stupid.
So that's who you guessed it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you read the books, there's evidence. The main thing is I don't know how it's revealed to him in the show. How does he find out? You can tell me. Like, how does he actually find out? Who is there to tell him? The only person that would have known was Ed, and Ed's dead.
See, that just was revealed like at the end of 7. Like for for good. Yeah. I mean, they actually said it. Like watching the show now, they allude to it quite a bit. But
so how is he? Who can confirm it for him?
He finds out. When he's able to ride the dragon.
Oh wow! Proving that he has Targaryen blood. Because So the guess was Rhaegar and Lyanna.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Right. And it made sense. And I remember the day I figured it out, or thought I figured it out. And I was so pleased. I called my mom and ranted and raved at her for about a half hour because I was so pleased with myself. And then I remember within about a year or two, that was on the show. I was like, oh, I guess I was right. But it's so less satisfying now.
I'm trying to remember how he actually found out. I think he did find out. No. Oh, he doesn't know yet.
Oh, the
audience knows, but he doesn't know. Well,
but he does feel weird because he was able to ride a dragon. So he's like, I could ride a dragon. I don't know why.
Everyone, turn this off if you haven't watched Game of Thrones and you want to. Yeah. But do you want to hear what happens?
What? Wait, I thought you said he doesn't know. Oh, you mean how we know?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, we find out, but him and Daenerys, they have sex.
Oh, nice.
And he does not know, but the audience knows. Some more incest on that show for you.
Yeah. Not as bad. I mean, he'd be her cousin. Right? Or no, he'd be her nephew. He'd be her nephew.
Yeah. So kind of.
See, that kind of thing just blows my mind. Just because I only got to a certain point in the show, and obviously the books. Daenerys has never set foot on Westeros, as far as I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
She's never gotten close. She's still way over there. And one of the things that excited me when I saw the preview for season 5, or maybe I think it was season 6, was there was a shot where it was Daenerys. I can't think of anybody's names anymore. It's been too long. Sorry. No, Daenerys, Tyrion, and I do believe Davos are all together in the map room on Dragonstone.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Whoa, awesome!" And then I actually wound up stop watching before it got to that point.
Yeah.
So all these characters actually meeting still hasn't happened for me.
Well, there's a lot of theories that Tyrion is Targaryen as well.
Yeah.
And
I don't know. I don't want them to muddy it with too many fucking Targaryens.
But he's able to fuck with the dragons too. They don't eat him alive like they would a normal person. When he set him free in Marine.
Maybe I'll start watching season 4 again.
Or no, you haven't seen that yet. You haven't even seen that part. You've probably seen where they got chained up.
Yeah.
2 of the dragons did.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm trying to remember the furthest I saw. It was when they were finally starting to show some of the stuff that was going on in Dorne.
Mm-hmm. So,
but anyway,
who is Tommen? Tommen is king. Where you left off? Yeah.
Yep. Tommen is king. Myrcella's in Dorne, but then she gets kidnapped.
Oh yeah, man! Lots of great stuff to come. That's a great season too.
And I know that there's an amazing episode where Jon takes the Night's Watch to Hardhome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the furthest I read was where they're planning that, where they're saying, "Yeah, we're gonna have to get up there and help the people of Hardhome." And I've heard that episode's really badass, fighting a bunch of undead and stuff.
It's 30 straight minutes of White Walker action.
Yeah. And I've on purpose denied myself information about Bran, so don't tell me about Bran. I mean, I know there's all sorts of weird stuff going on with it.
We really don't even know a whole lot, so.
Yeah, Bran seems to be, as far as I can tell, at least from the perspective of the books, he seems like he's the most important character.
Mm-hmm. Well, season 5, no, season 4, you don't really even see Bran at all in the entire season.
Yeah, well, he's not in the 4th book.
Okay.
The 4th and 5th books are so big that the events take place mostly at the same time, but they're split into 2 books because it would be just too big. So you read the entire 4th book, there's a whole bunch of characters you never see. Tyrion's not in the 4th book at all. You know, so there's like a huge thing. Like the 3rd book ends the way season 3 ends, where Tyrion loses the trial, kills his father, and escapes. Then we don't actually have any idea what happened to Tyrion if you read the whole 4th book. The whole 4th book, it's everybody freaking out in his absence, and you have no idea and stuff. But I did see some of that on the show. Like one of the things they made different is they seem to have like what's his name go with him. He doesn't go with him in the book. Varys doesn't go with him. He goes with him to a certain point, and then he's like, okay, now you go on from here. But they seem to be together on the show.
I think they're still together on the show, yeah. There's a theory that Bran is the Night King.
Yeah, so I don't even know who the Night King is.
Okay.
Some obviously power north of the wall, some old ancient magic thing.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I got to the part where there's this thing full of trees sitting on sticks and trees sitting on a throne, and tells Bran how he's going to teach him stuff. And
the three-eyed raven.
Yeah, all that stuff. But I only got to the very beginning of that. I don't know where it went or what it's going. But yeah.
It's very interesting.
There's a lot of stuff, and like I said, I am as annoyed as I am by some of it. I mean, I can't deny that it's still really interesting to me, and there's probably some really good stuff in there. So maybe sometime in the near future, maybe even around Christmas while I'm at my parents' house, maybe I'll dig back in and start watching season 4 and get myself through it to the later seasons, since I've got the option. So I mean, it was the show that really opened my eyes, because it made me so happy that like something so rich and complex from a book could be adapted so well for the most part. Like it just made me so happy when I saw that first season. Like I couldn't tell you how happy I was. I was like, TV can do this? Like I was like in disbelief of how good like the first season was. And I feel that way about mostly the first 3 seasons are almost perfect. But anyway.
Yeah, we're losing viewers like crazy talking about Game of Thrones, so
come on, people! You have lots of time.
Let's see. No, man, we really got off on a tangent there.
As we do.
Yeah, I was going to mention it was a few things I was going to bring up that we talked about on past shows. You talked about Jared, the stuff Jared did with Subway and his audio recordings and stuff. You
heard some of that?
Yeah, gosh, that is awful.
Doesn't he sound so stupid and gullible? You're like, I don't believe this guy. Because she's just like, yeah, what else? And, and she's just like, what do you want me to do? I'm like, she's so feeding him and setting him up. He doesn't know.
And then what would you do? You do?
I mean, it's all leading. And he doesn't clue in at all because he's so fucking stupid.
He's so horny. He's all about it. He's like,
yeah, apparently. And
then she wants or he wants her to have sex with a young boy, and he's gonna have sex with a young girl. And they was talking about going to Thailand at one point too. And I started thinking, so there's a whole population of pedophiles that just go to Thailand to do that shit, right? The rich pedophiles.
Yeah, Gary Glitter did it for years before he was caught.
That's awful,
Gary
man.
Glitter, yeah, because there's a whole sort of underground market in Thailand of child prostitution, and it's not that hard. I even saw documentaries where documentary guys goes posing as a sex tourist, and it took him 5 seconds. He just went to some place and he just asked around a little bit. Within a few minutes, somebody was leading to a place to show him really young kids that they could have sex with.
So it's not frowned upon there.
It is, but it's just a place that has a bigger market for it, I guess. I mean, I don't exactly know what their laws are, but it is against the law.
I know that's a popular place for ladyboys too, right? Isn't it?
I think it's the population of the world. I think it's the capital of the world for that.
Whatever your kink is, you can go there.
Yeah, Bangkok.
Bestiality, yeah.
I'm talking to a girl from Bangkok right now. It's kind of funny. I don't think she's part of that scene. She works in an office.
Ask her about it. I'd be interested to know. Because, you know, it can't be as widespread as, you know, what we think. But that's all you hear about, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, it still is sort of like a sex tourism, illegal and legal, like because there's plenty. Because I mean, you can go there and do plenty of like legal stuff, like just get a sort of ordinary prostitute or of age ladyboy and stuff like that. Yeah, so, but yeah, you hear about that every once in a while. Somebody that went on like a sex tour of Thailand is just like,
well, you know, there's a lot of human trafficking that goes on in the U.S. It's kind of all underground, so you don't really hear about it, but.
Right.
I wonder if maybe they wind up in places like that. You know, it's somewhere in Asia, but I guess that would be the place to go.
Yeah. It's amazing how much human trafficking goes on in the U.S. It's
really crazy.
Like, you don't really think about it, but yeah, there's a ton.
You don't hear about it, not nearly enough.
And I don't know why. Like, why isn't it more publicized? Like when the cops like break open a ring and stuff. Like, and there's some really weird levels to it too. There's like, because most of it is you hear about the human trafficking of people that like were tricked or whatever. You know, they're from other countries, and they wanted to come to the U.S. and they were tricked and they were turned into like, you know, they're kidnapped and basically slaved and then, you know, sold off for various things. Sometimes as prostitutes, sometimes different things. But I mean, it even happens to people from America every once in a while. Like, there was this girl that I saw on a TV show, like, from the time she was, like, 14 or 15. She was just some sort of, like, more or less, like, sex slave that some guy owned that he would, like, lend out, and she would, like, go to events and stuff with, like, you know, big, powerful businessmen and stuff, and if they wanted to fuck her, they could, you know. And then, but she always had to go back to, like, her guy and stuff, and, like, she spent, like, 4 or 5 years. And this is, again, she's American, they're American, everybody's white and stuff like that. It's not like what you're thinking, you know. And she said she went to, like, the Super Bowl a few times. She's in, like, the room with she's, like, all dressed up in super expensive clothes. She's in the room with really fancy guys and stuff. And, again, if they want to take her into some room and have sex with her, she can't do anything about it, and they just do and stuff, like. Yeah, and I mean, it's not just a bunch of claims. Like, it was looked into, and it was a lot of it was verified. Not saying that happens a lot, but yeah, usually you think of the other way. But that even happens to some people that are even from here, that they can fall through the cracks and get caught up in this. Yeah, it's still you don't think of it in the 21st century, but it is a thing where people more or less do own other human beings in one way or another. It's crazy.
There's this guy, there's an Oklahoma state senator. Was accused of sex trafficking. This is fairly new. Just a few days ago, I think, is when this broke.
Oh, yeah.
Sex trafficking charge after being accused for soliciting sex from a 17-year-old boy. I mean, I don't know. 17-year-old boy is a lot better than, 10-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Still illegal.
I mean, it doesn't look good, especially like if you're like married or something like that. But yeah, I don't think you monster necessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He told me he was 18.
Yeah.
You know.
There's always that.
But yeah, another thing you brought up was the I guess it's not a negative stereotype, but the Canadians being polite.
Yeah.
And you were saying you would say thank you a certain number of times.
Yeah.
And when making a purchase or whatever. But yeah, I do the same thing. So I've been counting, and usually come in hard with a please and then 3 thank yous throughout the transaction. So yeah, I'm pretty much the same way.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Hospitality could be a Southern thing too.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, it's just the way I was raised, man. It feels odd to not do it. You know.
Yeah.
It's like try not doing it and then see.
That's what I mean. I'm so conditioned.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was like a nervous tick. Like this, like just a few days ago, this is weird because this never happens to me, and I think, and this is the type of thing that haunts me, and other people would shrug off. I was just leaving my drugstore. It was nighttime, and there was a guy like in a motorized wheelchair, and he's in front of me going along like here, and I sort of misjudged his speed, and I know I kind of cut in front of him just to go past him, but I still at the time thought I didn't cut too close. Like I wasn't looking at him, so But then, like, by the time I was a few feet away, he like said, "Oh, sorry about that," and I turned and said, "No problem," and waved. But as soon as I did, I thought he was totally being sarcastic. I think I cut him off, like, and it just haunted me the whole way back. I'm almost positive that he was being sarcastic, and that he was like calling me out for being a dick for like walking right in front of him. But it wasn't like me trying to be a dick or walk right in front of him. I just misjudged the speed of his wheelchair. I thought I could make it, but I wasn't looking in his direction. But I get the feeling I must have gone right in front of him and forced him to stop, and I didn't realize it. So yeah, I was only a few feet away, and he goes, "Sorry about that," or something like that. And then I turned, and I just like automatically turned. I said, "Oh yeah, no problem." But then like a few seconds later, as I'm walking away, I'm thinking, I'm pretty sure that was sarcastic, and I cut him off. And that like bothered me for the rest of the night because I'm not used to having like negative interactions with people, and it really bothered me at the time. I was like, I cut off some jerk, and I cut off some guy with a wheelchair. I'm a jerk. But it was just because, yeah, I was just trying to judge how fast he was going and how I could just keep going in a straight line without going around him or waiting for him. And I'm pretty sure I just misjudged. And he probably either had to slow down or stop, and I walked right in front of him, and I probably look like a big douche. I feel bad about that.
Yeah, I'm sure he's used to it, so he's already got his sarcastic reply ready.
Yeah. Maybe he's just really rude. I don't know. But I did feel bad because, like, when I replayed it in my mind, I figured I must have just like walked directly in front of him or cut him off or something. So I don't know, because there was definitely no reason for him to say sorry. Because I wasn't even looking in his direction. Because again, I didn't think he was that close to me, but obviously he was. But yeah, that bothered me a lot for the rest of the night because I was just like, oh man. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, asshole.
Yeah. At least he didn't say that.
Yeah.
Although then, if he did, at least I would have known for sure.
Oh man, some
closure.
Some YouTube videos you see, gosh. It's like, man, these people go from like 0 to insanely angry. Like,
yeah, it's like, how do you live in human society if like you get that mad over these things? Like, you need to go like live on an island by yourself or something. If like these normal everyday interactions like piss you off that much.
I always do the George Costanza, and I'm like, we're living in a society. You know, you can't act that way because we all have to live on this place together. You know. It's just
like, it's annoying enough when you see it in drunk people, but at least they have the excuse of being drunk. Because when I was younger, a few times when I would go to bars with friends and stuff like that, I mean, I saw like every ultra aggressive asshole out there that would just take everything as a slight. You know, no matter what you say to them, somehow they think it's an insult. No matter where you move or stand, you're somehow in their way. You know, seen plenty of that ultra aggression from stupid, guys. Girls have their own aggression where they're just like, fuck you, fuck everybody here, you can go to hell, all that stuff. I'm just like, what? I'm like, why do you like going out and drinking if it makes you such a jerk? Like, how are you having fun if you're just mad all the time?
But I think age has a lot to do with it, but yeah, there's a certain percentage of guys that just are in that mode all the time, that alpha, they just want to fight all the time.
Yeah. Because I've been in a few altercations and actual fights. Like, I've at least been peripheral to them and stuff like that. That's the main thing I tell people. It's funny, like, when you see, like, usually in most movies, a bar fight is actually almost a comedic scene. Yeah. And I mean, I've been in bar fights and they're not funny. They're scary. Like, people get hurt. Like, I've been in bar fights where, like, barely anything happens and my heart is still pounding like crazy because I'm just thinking about, like, what could have happened and stuff. Yeah. It's funny, though, too, because some people still manage to be chill, and I really respect that. Like, one night, I must have been maybe pretty young, probably 20 or 21, maybe even 19, I don't know. I had been out, and I hadn't drank a drop, but I was with some friends, and one of my friends, another friend named Ryan, not our Ryan, but another Ryan, he was, like, loaded, and he's normally a nice guy, but for whatever reason, he was just being really rude to everybody around him, and even I was straight, I wasn't drunk, and other friends were drunk, but they were being apologetic for him. They're like, man, shut up, calm down, stuff like that. And man, we went to like a pizza place just down the street from the bar. We're standing in line, and there were a few Indian people there, like indigenous people, and one of them was really big, and like he like shoved the big guy and called him like a fucking squaw and all this stuff. And we're like, and we're like, oh God, we are so sorry. We're waiting for this guy to destroy us. He was like 6'4" at least. He was huge and stuff. And we probably had our racial profiling out too, because we were used to the Indians being really aggressive,
Yeah.
and tough and stuff, and we're like, oh god. But this guy was so nice. He's like, hey, and he kept saying homie. He was like, hey there, I think your homie there had a little too much to drink, eh? Like, you need to calm down, homie. And we're like, oh, thank you for being so nice. Like, you would be totally justified in like wringing his neck and throwing him into the street and stuff. It was the same night where later in the night he had a second piece of pizza and he just took it and smeared it all over somebody's windshield just when they were walking up to their car. They're like, what the fuck are you doing to my car? And he's like, it's my pizza. I can do what I want with it. And we're like, oh my god. This guy luckily wasn't big, and Ryan was kind of a big guy himself, so he wasn't intimidated. But I just mean, Jesus. But yeah, I thank God every day for nice guys like that big Indian guy, because he was so calm and nice and polite in like somebody being so awful and rude to him, and he so would have been justified in just knocking his teeth out. So it's nice when that happens too.
I think everyone has that friend that you just can't take out, like, to drink. Even though I rarely do that anymore, but someone who just gets like, they drink way too fast, too much, don't know how to hold their alcohol, whatever, and they're just ready to.
He wasn't. It was weird because he wasn't really usually like that. I mean, he got annoying and loud the way people do, but he wasn't usually that mean-spirited. I don't really know what did it. It's not like every time he drank he was like that. So it was just a really odd night. Maybe there's details from the night I'm not remembering, maybe something that pissed him off or something. But all I can basically remember is like being in the pizza place, which is a very small place. We're almost sort of packed in because there's lots of people there. They do a lot of business, obviously, drunks coming out of the bar and stuff. And like, this guy just towered over all of us. I mean, I'm not big, but my friends, they're all at least 6 feet and stuff like this. This guy was huge. And plus we're like, oh, the savage Indian, the Indians we always hear about on the news that are getting in brawls and stuff and, and stuff like that. But this guy was just so chill and nice. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. And yeah, and that didn't even shut him up, because I said later, he's smearing his pizza on some guy's car, just being a total dick. I have no idea why.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, bar fights are not cool. And one of my friends, somebody smashed a beer bottle in the back of his head. He had to get stitches and everything. And that went to court and everything. It was crazy.
I had a friend of mine that I think he was in New Orleans when it happened. He got hit with a aluminum baseball bat.
Jesus.
He has a steel plate in his head. It like crushed his skull and stuff. So.
Yeah. I remember once years ago when we were pretty young, there was this total dive bar that's been gone for years now that we went to just because it was a dive bar. And some guy, he was probably like in his 40s, like sucker punched one of my friends. Just like one punch. And he wasn't like a big tough guy or anything, but it just shows like in real life what he can do. Because like, it marked up his face. He wound up throwing up later. Like, it can really, it was just awful. Like he was bad for the rest of the night. Like we basically called it a night early and took him home because like just take him one shot. We hustled the guy out of there. Again, he was just some non-intimidating middle-aged guy that we could have beaten up, I suppose, we wanted to. We're just like, get out of here and stuff like that. And our friend, he had like a black mark on his face and he threw up and he just felt like shit the rest of the night just from one shot.
Sure.
Especially if you're not expecting.
And maybe he was like borderline concussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of concussions. So.
Oh, have you?
Not from getting punched. One from a giant tree root falling on my head, which I know sounds crazy. Okay, so very quickly I'll say it's the only time I was ever... Most people live their life without getting knocked unconscious, even though in movies people get knocked unconscious all the time. Well, I got knocked unconscious for, I'm not sure exactly how long, a few minutes. So, like I said, growing up, we had woods right next to our neighborhood. It's all pretty much gone now because they put up a school there. Now there's a neighborhood and everything. But for a long time, there was woods, like right at the edge of our yards. And a big thing is us as kids was when we were outside playing, we can just go piss in the woods because, even though the house is right there, it's more fun to do that anyway.
Absolutely.
So we were playing in Ryan's yard one day about his deck and stuff in the summer. And I went to pee in the woods and I did. And I only had to really go about 20 feet in. It's pretty thick. And behind Ryan's house for many, many years, as long as I can remember, might even still be there because that section of woods is still there. There's still a very narrow section of woods behind our houses on that side up to, then there's a fence and then it's the new neighborhood. So there's still sort of like what's left of the woods, at least maybe 20, 25 feet. So not very far in, there's a giant, giant tree that many years ago had been uprooted and was leaning down like this. It was sideways, being held up by other trees, and it had huge roots that stuck up into the air. And sometimes, to amuse myself, I would get into, you know, this part of the tree, and I would just sort of stand there and look down and jump off. So this time I was in there, and I went to one of the edge of the roots, and the end of it snapped, and I fell off, but I landed okay. I fell about 6 feet, and I landed kind of like this. I landed with my feet like that. And I was like, oh, and I was sort of shaking myself off. And then I heard it crack again, looked up, and the rest of the root came down and smashed me in the head. And so I blacked out. And then, like, I sort of came to, and my friends were calling for me because I guess I've been gone long enough for them to wonder that. And I just sort of wandered out and told them that I was okay, and I hit my head. And I had, like, felt fine until, like, a few days later, like, about 2 or 3 days later, I started getting a headache, and it wouldn't go away, and I went to the hospital. I had a concussion. So that's the weird one. The other concussion was just from playing hockey. Some guy rocked my head off the glass. When I was 18, it was my first year at university. I was playing intramurals hockey. I don't know how I didn't die playing in that league. I was like underweight those years. I was like 125 pounds, soaking wet. Man, wow. I was really small. You know, I was playing with guys that were like 60, 80 pounds heavier than me, and I was kind of a target in the league too because I was small. I got smoked at least once a game. But yeah, this guy, he wasn't so big. He was just really tall. He was really tall, and like he lined me up and hit my head off the glass. And do you ever like you're swimming underwater and you bonk your head against like the side of the pool? It makes that thunk sound. Well, that's what it kind of sounded like. I heard thunk, and I got up and I kind of couldn't see over here too well, and I went and I just sort of barely made it to the bench. I actually played the rest of the game, but then I went to the hospital. And our great healthcare system, you know, it was the middle of the night because our intramural games were late at night anyway. It's the middle of the night at the hospital. I wait for about 4 or 5 hours. I go see some doctor, and he's like, yeah, you have a concussion. And he gives me a pamphlet, and he's just like, if any of these symptoms come up before Friday, it was a Tuesday night, you'll come back. But apparently it wasn't a severe concussion because by like Wednesday or Thursday, I felt fine. But so
yeah, don't they tell you not to go to sleep for some reason? I guess you can die in your sleep. I'm not sure.
Yeah. As far as the hockey one was so non-severe that he didn't even seem worried about that. It was kind of like the lowest level of concussion you can get. Whereas
I'm sure they see that all the time.
The tree root one, I don't remember what they said, but that was worse because again, I wouldn't even gone to the hospital with that, except I did have recurring symptoms because you'll get headaches and you'll throw up and stuff, and that happened to me. Didn't happen to me with the hockey one. And I only missed like one game. I missed like the next week's game, and then I came back after that, and I felt fine. It was just such a waste of time even bothering to go to the hospital. They didn't do anything for me. They're just like, yeah, it's a concussion. If these symptoms happen, you can come back. They didn't happen. I didn't come back. So I haven't had like serious concussions, but I have been knocked unconscious, which not too many people have been. And it's very weird. I don't know how many people get knocked unconscious by tree roots.
How long were you out? Do you know?
I don't know. It couldn't have been more than 15 minutes, but it was at least a few minutes. It was enough for my friends to wonder what the hell happened to me because, you know, I was going to go pee in the woods and come right back. So it was probably between 5 and 10 minutes, I guess. I had already been gone for a few minutes. Like I said, I already peed, and I was getting up in the tree to amuse myself. And so it wasn't long. It wasn't long, but it was long enough for me to, like, wake up and, like, have that weird sense of, like, not remembering anything, like, where you are or what's going on. And I was like, oh, yeah. And then I saw, like, the thing was, like, next to me. I was like, that must have landed on me. It's kind of weird. Like, I didn't actually feel any pain waking up. Like, I didn't feel it was, like, a delayed reaction.
Yeah.
Really weird.
What if all of this is like a Jacob's Ladder scenario?
Yeah, I died there.
You died there in the woods.
I don't know what my lesson is supposed to be or what the angels are doing. Help me, angels. Yeah, I've probably had that thought before. What's funny is, like, back then, I was like maybe 11 when that happened, and I didn't even think anything of it at the time. It wasn't until years later that I realized how odd that was, and like that's not something that people really go through. I didn't even think about that for like years until I realized, oh yeah, it's not like the movies. People don't just get knocked out all the time.
Yeah, no, it's like movies. It's just like you bonk them on the head, and they just like wake up 10 minutes later. You know.
Yeah, and no problem
on the head, and they die. Like,
yeah,
that's got to be a pretty large percentage.
Yeah. It caught me, like, right about here. Sort of. The back side. which I don't even understand because the wrestling I remember was Looking Up. Like, I don't know why it didn't hit me like this because I thought, again, I guess it's because your memory gets fuzzy because of what happened.
Right.
But remember I hearing it crack and looking up just in time to I have a memory of it coming down and like seeing it coming down. Did I maybe I didn't and I just my brain filled that in later, but that's how I remember it. I remember hearing it crack, looking up, and actually seeing it coming towards me. But the way it hit me suggests that I didn't. So maybe my brain just filled in and made a false memory. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I can believe all of that.
But that's how I remember it.
Because, I mean, how many times have you remembered something a certain way, but you find, definite proof that it did not happen that way at all? It's I forget what they call that, but oh shit, yeah.
And there's like a similar one in movies. I remember DJ Donnelly had mentioned it. What was it, the Mandela effect or something?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's more like when you hear about something being a certain way so many times, or that it's supposed to be, so that you just see it or experience it that way, or something. I think it is. It's like the way like people remember like "Beam Me Up, Scotty," even though that was never actually said on the show.
Yeah.
In those words and things like that. Like, yeah, some of it's just like misheard quotes and stuff like that, where it's like, oh, I thought for sure it was that, but it's not. But it just gets passed on that way.
Mm-hmm.
Badges, we don't need no stinking badges. Like, there's a few of those famous quotes that were actually said slightly different, but everybody remembers them and passes it on a different way. I think that's the Mandela effect is.
Or like the Bernstein Bears.
Yeah.
Have you heard about all that?
Man, those got weird. No.
Just that a lot of people remember it being Bernstein, and it's Bernstein Bears.
I always said Berenstain. The Berenstain Bears.
Yeah, I think that's
what's funny is I owned a bunch of those books when I was a kid, and I did read them, and it's a good thing like I grew up when I did, because like as I got older and I didn't know, the books got a lot fucking weirder. Like, I guess they just ran out of plots, and they got so like weird and Christian, like all the ones I read were pretty normal, but if you look it up now, there's like some very bizarre plots out there where it's like they just ran out of things to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I read the books quite a bit. I know there was a cartoon that came out as well. It's actually Berenstain.
Yeah, now that I type it in, you see that it's Stain.
Yeah, and I always said Steen.
Yeah, I always said Steen too, the Berenstain Bears. But yeah, I mean, there are a bunch that I read, and they were all pretty normal in their lessons. There wasn't anything too strange about them, but like Jan and Dan Berenstein, or whatever their names are, as I guess Stan and Jan Berenstein, as they got older, just either ran out of plots or just decided to kick it up a notch because things got weird. I'm trying to find one, and now I can't make the fucking page scroll. Oh, come on. What is wrong with you?
I like the one where Sister Bear was like smoking crack. And
See, there's one called Lost in Cyberspace, for instance.
Oh, wow. That's dated.
Yeah. Let's see. They fall victim not only to distraction, but also to online dating gone awry and cyber extortion. Luckily, with the help of a good woman, Brother Bear shakes his interweb addiction.
Wow.
Yeah, that would have been way after I stopped reading them.
Brother Bear has a porn addiction.
Yeah, they have the Berenstain Bears and the Bad Dream listed on here. It's a weird one. I always thought it was pretty normal. That's from 1988, and I owned that one. I didn't think that one was weird. No Guns Allowed. This is where things get really messed up.
Is it Canadian? Is it a Canadian, the author?
I don't know. It sounds like a Canadian thing, doesn't it?
I was just curious. Let's see. Stan, Jan.
But yeah, there's a plot about like one of these kids bringing a gun to school. It's a fake gun, but it looks real, and people freaking out about it and stuff. So yeah, so I'd love to read that book. No Guns Allowed. But probably New Neighbors is the one that gets talked about the most. Again, this would have been well after I was reading it. This would have been like the mid-90s, where a family of pandas move in, and it's like full of total like weird, awkward, racist moments.
Sorry, I laughed too hard at that.
Yeah, and yeah, I guess if Papa really doesn't like them apparently, and builds a fence.
Man, these authors were old as hell.
Yeah, because they just started them a long time ago and then just never stopped.
She died in 2012. He died in 2015. He was
Oh, they're dead now.
like 90, 94.
Well, did I mention that Beverly Cleary is 101
Wow.
and still alive? Like, I knew her books were from back in the day, but I didn't know she was that old when she wrote them. She would have been already like in her like late 30s or 40s when she wrote Henry Huggins. Like she wrote the first book in like 1950. I always knew that, but I just figured she was a lot younger. But yeah, she's still alive and she's 101.
It's like just like a super old actor. You just assume they're dead, but they're not. Like who was I looking at the other day? Fucking Dick Van Dyke is still alive.
Yeah. What's he get up to these days? Nothing much.
91. You just assume, you know. You're like, fucker's like 90 something years old. Yeah, he's got to be dead.
Looking at another list of them. Here's ones I owned. I owned Double Dare. I owned Too Much Junk Food. I owned Bad Habit. I don't know why these are on the list. There's nothing weird about them.
So it's like a Nolan thing, and there's a bunch of weird books in that list.
Yeah.
The most awkward Bernstein Bears books. Oh, The Birds and the Bees. That's a fun one.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I know there was definitely some beside. Yeah, but those are like, I think, the main ones. The cyberspace one, the gun one, and the racism one.
So what was the racist one? Like, what was the premise?
A family of pandas moved next door, and like Papa just immediately didn't like them.
Like,
new neighbors, I guess. Yeah, new neighbors.
Okay.
It's
Chinese.
Basically that
okay.
They just,
You're Chinese.
Yeah, I mean.
Like an Archie Bunker over here.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the cover looks like. They're looking at them, and Papa's like glaring at them with his arms crossed. Like, there goes the neighborhood.
That's hilarious. You're talking about people that were born in the 20s wrote this shit, so.
I know, but again, you don't think.
Goddamn pandas are going to take all our jobs.
That's what they'll do.
Wow.
Berenstain. Stain, that's just.
Isn't that weird? That's weird to say.
Berenstain.
Anyway, there's all these theories that like it's different universes and stuff. That oh yeah, that's from another universe. Yeah. Kind of an odd thing to go on about detail about, but it is kind of odd that like most people remember it as Stein or
I always said Steen. I always
Steen,
said Berenstain.
Steen, yeah.
Berenstain. The Berenstain Bears. To me, that just sounds.
But if you were going to spell that, you wouldn't spell it the way it's spelled, right? Like, I mean, before we talked about this.
Yeah, I don't know. Like you said, it's Stain, which for some reason I don't remember it that way.
Yeah.
Even though I owned a whole pile of books that had it.
See, these books are from a different universe. That's what it is.
Clearly.
Or a dimension, possibly.
Yeah. Oh, I know about all the dimension stuff. I read up on that every once in a while. It's fun. The fiction. There's two main ones that I use, and people will mix them together. One is the DC one, with the various alternate worlds of DC, and the other is actually Kingdom Hearts. And I've read various things that like combine those two. So to me, yeah, everything in fiction we've read is real. It's just in a different universe.
Makes sense.
And that some of it crosses over, some of it ties together and stuff. I go really deep down the rabbit hole on that one sometimes to amuse myself. Helps if you like know the history and rules of some of these ones, because it is interesting. Like I said, the DC one and the Kingdom Hearts one, how well they tie together in some ways, and how sometimes they'll actually almost confirm certain things about each other. pretty cool. I found out from a tweet that Eric put up that the Flash show was doing like a 3-part episode with a Crisis storyline. I think it's called Crisis on Earth X or something like that. All I can think is, wow, we've gotten to a point where Crisis storylines are on TV. I can't even imagine. I never watched the Flash show, and I don't care, but I think I will try to watch those episodes just to see what they do.
He loves the Flash, and there's a few other of those TV shows that he likes a lot too. I haven't watched any of them.
Arrow when it first came out, but it just got too busy. Like, Arrow started out pretty good, but then Arrow was almost like their excuse to put, like, they didn't have a Batman show, but just put in as many Batman things as they could into Arrow because they wanted to put it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Arrow has, like, Ra's al Ghul and the League of Assassins and all this stuff, and it has an episode with Huntress. Like, everything that's, like, peripheral to Batman that they don't know where to put it, they just stick it in the Arrow show. And it just became overwhelming. I think the first season was really cool because it was simplistic, but they just kept adding layers and stuff. At one point, he's got like 4 or 5 other costume people working with him. It's too much. Too much. But yeah, they did like an Arrow Flash crossover a few times. I saw the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I sought that out of curiosity, and it wasn't bad and stuff. I don't know. I never liked the Flash in the comics. I don't care which version it is. I don't care if it's Wally West or Barry or anybody. Never been a Flash person. And he's just too difficult to like make plots for. I mean, if you can just move faster than most people can even think, why should you ever have trouble? Why should you ever lose? I mean, I know they try to come up with like things and stuff. He also has the worst rogues gallery ever. For a major character, he has the worst rogues gallery ever. And they are actually literally referred to as the Rogues. Like, they are all known as specifically being Flash's enemies, and they all, like, hang out together. It's so lame. And they're terrible. Captain Cold, Captain Boomerang, what was the other one? Weather Wizard.
Oh, wow.
Mirror Master. They're terrible. It's like, how could these guys ever give the Flash trouble? They're so lame. But yeah, they're a lot more sympathetic than most like villains. That they go out. They're almost like a throwback. Like they never evolve. Like, you know, we were talking about how. Yeah, or no, we weren't. I was talking about somebody else. But yeah, about how, you know, the gradual change from villains, you know, being more like a comic book thing for kids, so people didn't really get hurt, to the evolve where, of course, now people do get hurt and people get killed and all sorts of stuff. It's almost like they never made that transition. They're almost exactly like they were back in the 50s. They just run around and cause trouble. They never really threaten anybody or hurt anybody, and they're not really like bad guys, except that like, oh, we're trying to curse the Flash. Like, they wouldn't like, you know, like steal from a sick person, or, you know, rape is certainly nothing they'd ever consider, you know, all that stuff. Yeah. I don't know if I can ever do another episode of my channel. Well, if I ever do another episode of my stupid channel again, like, I always want to do the very controversial DC storyline, Identity Crisis, because that sort of tackles a little bit of this whole thing about this thing with Dr. Light and stuff that was very polarizing. It's one of the few graphic novels I own that I definitely dislike, but I still think it's kind of important to own because it did kind of have a shift. It was very... Again, it was sort of controversial at this time. It's, even though it's called Crisis, it's not a crisis storyline. It's more or less a murder mystery. The elongated man, his wife, Sue Dibney, gets murdered. And it's just sort of finding out about who did it and why. And there's like, but the big revelation is there's a flashback to something that had happened a few years earlier involving members of the League and a villain called Dr. Light. And that all comes up to the surface too. And quite controversial. It also kills off Tim Drake, the third Robin's father, for like no reason, which is one of the reasons I don't like it. They're just like, everybody has to be an orphan. Everybody! Because for years, he'd operated as Robin, and he actually had a father, and at a certain point, his father even found out he was Robin and still let him do it. It was kind of different. And then in this storyline, and kills him. Well, not this guy. I don't mean this guy. Actually, the original Captain Boomerang kills him, if you can believe that. They kill each other at the same time. It's really stupid. We'll talk about that some other time. But yeah, Identity Crisis. I'm trying to remember who the writer was. Brad Meltzer. It's either Metzer or Meltzer, who's not really he wasn't really a comic book writer. He wrote novels, but he was like doing a special thing, and he wrote the storyline. It was really controversial at the time because a lot of people didn't like how it seemed to make certain like established heroes made their morality really questionable and stuff. So I don't know. I always thought I've had it for like 4 or 5 years, and I've always thought about actually doing an episode on it, and I never got around to it, but maybe I finally will.
Have you ever watched the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
No, I watched like the very start of it. I don't like it at all. It doesn't feel like Marvel at all. In no way does it feel like Marvel. Don't like it. But of Marvel, I just watched Punisher. I was kind of disappointed by it. It wasn't bad, but I thought it was going to be better. It strays too far. Like, I even put it below the Luke Cage show, and I didn't like the Luke Cage show very much either, but even the Luke Cage show had more of this. Just feels too far. Like, Karen Page is in there, and they name drop Fisk, but everything else, they're trying to real world it up way too much. He's barely actually is the Punisher. I don't like, they have the character Micro, but he's different, and I don't like him. And Billy Russo was the real name of Jigsaw, so we all know what's going to happen at the end. He's completely different, and I don't like that. In this, Billy Russo is like a good-looking guy who's like he was friends with, who they served in the military together. Because everything that ties the plot of this together goes back to his first appearance in the Daredevil season 2, which is all about how the drug deal or whatever gone wrong between the two gangs that got his family killed was all part of a bigger plot to like get rid of him. And this is what it's about. He's trying to find the people behind it and stuff and make them pay. And it's, I don't know, it's a little tedious to tell you the truth. It has definitely still some good moments, but I was definitely let down because I thought, oh, this has potential to be like a lot better than like Luke Cage or even Jessica Jones and stuff. But no. I've said many times how much I hate Jessica Jones and I hate her on screen, but the show is still damn good. I really enjoyed the show, how well written it was, but I put Punisher below them all. Wow. A lot of people pick on Iron Fist. I was okay with it. I can see the problems it had, but no problem. And I really felt bad because by the time Defenders came out, everybody seemed to think Jessica was so cool and Iron Fist was so lame. I was like, it's not like that in the comics. Anyway, that's a whole other thing, but yeah, I'd still recommend watching the Punisher show, especially if you watch the others, but I don't feel like it's on the same level. I was disappointed.
The only one of those I've seen is Daredevil.
That is the best one.
So
it has 2 seasons, and they're both excellent.
Are they? They are doing more, right? With Daredevil, or are they just doing Defenders now?
I really don't know what's supposed to happen now. I hope there's more Daredevil because of the way Defenders ends suggests there's definitely going to be some more Daredevil. Did you see Defenders?
Mm-mm.
Okay, I'm not going to spoil anything. Well, this is a very kind of spoil. I'll just say the very last shot of Defenders implies that if we do pick up with Daredevil again, it will at least slightly be similar to the Born Again storyline from the comics, which to me is the best Daredevil storyline of all time. The ending shot establishes something that would tie it into that. Like, obviously they wouldn't do it exactly the same, but it made me excited. I was like, oh, that'd be awesome if they did that, so. But we'll see. That was one thing that was good about the Defender series. They still, at the end of it, made it understood that out of all of them, Daredevil was kind of like the most important, and he was kind of the unofficial leader. I liked that. I wasn't really sure if they were going to do that or not, but they did. And I mean, the main bad guy in it winds up like being like Elektra and stuff, so he has like the most personal stake in it and stuff. So it's pretty cool. So Sigourney Weaver's in there, but you don't need her.
Luke Cage was the worst, or you thought Punisher was the worst?
Maybe they're a tie for the worst.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard lots of people complain about Iron Fist.
Yeah, no. And I mean, it's not just because I really like the character of Iron Fist, because I mean, if I thought they did him poorly, I'd be even more mad. I mean, they don't do him great. I get what people say. He gets a little whiny, and he's definitely at the forefront in Defenders as being kind of whiny. But at the same time, I kind of get it. There's one moment in like the 3rd or 4th episode of Defenders that really did, it was a total payoff for me. That made me so happy where Danny is fighting some guys in this office building. They all attack him in this boardroom. And while in the middle of fighting it, like Luke comes in too, and then they're both fighting them together. Like, and it was so happy for a fanboy like me that loved seeing them together. Because that's when I think I've said it before. They're my favorite friendship in comics, is Danny and Luke. So just, even though this is before they really knew each other and they're just fighting together, it just made me so happy. I was just like, ah. It's only a few seconds, but I really enjoyed seeing it. Yeah, they're my favorite friendship in comics. I've always liked it. And I always liked it because it was just sort of random how it happened. Basically, they were two series from the 70s, both exploitation. One was black exploitation, one was kung fu exploitation. They were both failing. and they just combined them, and it just worked really well for whatever reason. I just always thought they had great chemistry, and it's just been one of the cool, enduring friendships that I've always really enjoyed. I hate that he married Jessica Jones. I hate that, but whatever.
Yeah.
There's a really weird graphic sex scene in Punisher that serves no purpose.
Does it show?
There's like this agent.
Does it show
There's this
and stuff?
agent that's like almost.
Oh, okay.
It's like the close out of all of them, it shows the most. Like nothing full on, but still, like you see, like yeah, you have this agent. You have this agent working for. Who does she work for? The DEA or something like that, and she's like one of the principal characters because she's on the hunt for Frank, and she's also blah blah, and she actually sleeps with Billy Russo, and they have like a really graphic sex scene together. She's not pretty, but she has like a super awesome body, and I guess they really wanted to show it off. Like, yeah, they're making up and pulling their clothes off, and you see her in her really sexy underwear and stuff, and yeah, they have a fairly graphic sex scene for what this is. I mean, they did have one in the Jessica Jones thing too, where she and Luke are just like breaking the bed, but still, this shows more. I was kind of surprised, but
I'm gonna watch it right now.
Yeah, yeah. She's not beautiful, but her body's great, and I guess they're like, hey, we might as well show it.
Well, it's like HBO. It's like HBO will just throw like a random like dick in there every like 5 minutes just to remind you that this is not TV. This isn't TV. It's HBO.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. Like every episode of Dexter has got like full frontal like penetration.
I used to watch Dexter, and apparently I quit just when it got good, and then it got terrible. What's funny is the other day I was reading synopsises of finales of shows because I never saw them. Like I read like the synopsis of Breaking Bad's final episode. I read the synopsis of the Dexter one just because it was there, and I was like, it was weird because it had all this setup that I didn't know anything about. I read the synopsis of the what was it? Really popular show. The Gangster Family, The Sopranos one and stuff. These were shows I never really watched, with the exception of Dexter. I was just randomly reading their last episode because I stumbled upon them the other day. It's kind of funny, but I did enjoy Dexter for a few seasons.
Yeah. The first, I think, 3 are really good.
I mean, what's weird is like it started getting good again when I quit. I quit during the John Lithgow season, even though that was much better than the previous season.
Mm-hmm.
The previous season was terrible. The John Lithgow season, I was like, oh, this is better. And then I just stopped, and I don't know why. I didn't even get to see like that stuff. But anyway, yeah. So I don't know. Maybe while I'm at my parents' place over the holidays, I'll revisit some television and stuff. Definitely the Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'd recommend that.
Push myself through it.
I was listening to a podcast the other day or something. It was with the guy Mark Duplass. He directs a lot of indie stuff. He's done a few shows for HBO, and he was talking about HBO is really looking for lower budget things because like just one episode of Game of Thrones costs like $30 million. It's ridiculous. It's a crazy amount of money that it costs, and I don't know. I just wonder where that money's going.
I mean, the show has just been profitable enough that they can do it, I guess. It's a huge hit.
You really got to give it respect for the set design and the costumes and stuff like that. But,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was one of the very first things that like I caught on to when I first watched the show. Like, I very much bought that this was the world I'd read about. I was like, these guys really paid attention and they did a great job. And yeah, just great locations. They're in Malta and places like that. I mean, they're in Iceland for the stuff beyond the wall. I mean, it all looks so great.
Yeah, I guess shooting on location, that's definitely expensive. But
yeah. But yeah, I mean, as you said, there's still room for like a show that has a cheaper budget for sure. You can still make a good show that doesn't cost that much.
You could do a cheap drama, like episode cost $100,000, But that's basically what Mark Duplass did. He did this Room 105 show, which basically is a it's a motel room that it just has lots of stories that happen. It's like an anthology.
Yeah, I
Every
remember.
episode is in
Sounds
it.
interesting.
Yeah, and it's been good. I haven't finished it yet, but it has quite a few episodes. And he did another drama show that was pretty good. But him and his brother are both directors. He's also an actor that you'd probably recognize if you saw him. But he did Jeff Who Lives at Home.
Yeah, I've heard of that too.
And he did Cyrus.
Don't know that one.
You may have seen Puffy Chair. Lots of indie like comedies, indie drama stuff is really what they're known for. But they've got some shows on Netflix too, I think now. But anyway,
I think Netflix is great. Netflix is green lighting too much stuff. For a few years, a Netflix original series seemed to have like some weight to it, like quality, but now it doesn't. Like I think there's just too much stuff out there. They're watering
just so much
down.
there. I mean, I'm not going to say it's really bad, but it's just so much. I haven't even seen the majority of it.
I mean, a couple of years ago when a Netflix original series popped up, whatever it was, I was somewhat interested. Now they pop up so much, I don't even care. So, the good stuff kind of gets buried by the mediocre.
Exactly.
So I'm just like, oh, another one.
Yeah.
For a while, they had, a bunch of really high-quality shows that were just standing at the top.
I mean, I think we're in a world now where, you can watch the entire season, immediately if you want to.
Yeah.
And, there is no anticipation anymore for, I can't wait till that next episode comes out,
Yeah.
I don't know. I could see that, but it probably also, a show's not going to stay popular for as long when everyone can just watch the whole thing immediately.
So, yeah, it's hilarious how even the shows that are really well received, how small the window really is.
Mm-hmm.
It's 2 or 3 months, everybody's talking about the show, and then it's forgotten.
Exactly.
Move on to the next show.
That just is the the short attention span that people have.
Yeah, and I mean, I admit I have it to a certain extent.
Content.
I'm not, I'm more of a show person than I used to be, but I'm still not much of one. And I do lose patience with them fairly quickly and stuff. Although I don't think I lose patience with them for the same reasons a lot of other people do. It's not always to do with necessarily what I think is going on with the plot. It's other stuff too. But I don't know. I'm definitely at a point now where I'm watching more shows than I ever did.
Yeah.
Most of my life, the shows I watched were just sort of the same animated sitcoms over and over again. Those were the shows I watched. The Simpsons and Futurama, maybe Family Guy. Just all those again and again. That's still a ritual for me. Usually, if I go to bed, in the half hour before I go to bed, I just put on some episode of something I've seen 1,000 times for background noise while I check a few things on the computer. Then I go to bed. Just something I don't know, something comforting about the familiarity of it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it is good to still engage myself in new shows. As I said, I was pretty happy with the Fargo show. I thought the first season was pretty good. I thought the second season was really good. I really liked the second season. So I know there's a third season. It's not on Netflix yet, but I think I can watch some of it on FX when I'm in Sydney. My parents have that channel at home. So yeah, I'm definitely interested to check that out.
I'm just looking over the content is just crazy. The number of shows on Netflix.
Yeah.
Adult animation, there's 5 shows. Oh man, kids, the children's programming is ridiculous.
Yep.
I can't even. It's 50 of those. But everybody has Netflix for the most part, so
yeah,
it's a really, really common thing.
Just so much to sift through.
Exactly.
Except the other night, Oric and I were just trying to find a movie to watch together. One, we just wanted to find something that was on both our Netflix, because there's actually quite a disparity now between American and Canadian Netflix. And two, it was just hard to find anything that we thought was worth watching. We took 30 minutes just trying to find something.
How was it?
The movie?
Yeah.
It was worth watching, I suppose. You know, I picked it because it has that sort of retro feel to it. It's about brothers that their father owned a video store, and now the video store's gone out of business and stuff, and they find like a VCR game, and the VCR game's evil and stuff. It's like like Nightmare and stuff. It has a couple good practical effect, gore effect things. It's not much of a movie, but it's worth watching. It was okay.
Is it Beyond
Beyond the Gates?
Beyond the Gates.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It had that very retro sort of feel to it. Although I am sort of losing my patience with those because yes, we get it. The best horror movies were for the most part in the 70s and 80s. But the problem now is like that's what every horror maker knows coming out. And they just want to either set it there or evoke that. Like I loved It Follows and I like its retroness, but at the same time it is a little weird that like in 2014 or 2015 or whatever, you have like this bunch of teenagers driving around in a 40-year-old car. Like people drive the oldest cars. They have old. I mean, get it. People like the old stuff, the analog phones and stuff. I mean, I'm a fan of that too. But after a while, you have to just move on. It's great to like do a great homage to an 80s movie and stuff. Those are good, but we do need to move on. We do need to say that horror can still be done here and now. And there's too much looking back from these directors. They are too in love with the stuff from the 70s and 80s, and they want all their stuff to pay homage to it and evoke that and stuff.
I totally agree. It's
too much.
But it's so much easier to create suspense when all it would take is like one phone call on your cell phone to the police that would like end the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I get it for the setting, but I mean, as I said, some of these things are set in contemporary times, but they just have really old stuff thrown in for no reason. Like, why would those teenagers have that car? Like, I didn't think of it at the time, but Jesus Christ, do you remember in Halloween H2O, the part where they do the fake scare at the rest stop where the woman and her girl go and, they're at the rest stop and Michael's like in the stall, but nothing happens, but he steals their truck? They're driving some sort of like 1940s Oldsmobile truck or something. Like, what the hell? She's just this ordinary suburban mom with a daughter, and they're driving this antique around.
You see that in movies a lot, like they're driving older vehicles. That's
what I mean, but especially the horror movies because they want to throw back to the old time. Like they always do that, and it doesn't even make sense. Anyway, with this movie, it makes sense. I'm just saying it's just yet another sort of retread there because it's paying homage to VHS and rentals and VCR games and stuff, and that's all fine and stuff. And it's got like a soundtrack that reminds you of that. And it's fine. It's okay. Like I said, it was worth the watch. It was kind of fun to watch something with Orc. His computer's fried or something because of went there. So we were talking on the PS4, which I haven't done very much, but it worked okay. Yeah. So we were talking on the mics on PS4 and watching a movie. And eventually one of Orc's gaming's friends, who's like 12 years old, showed up. That was kind of weird.
Well, was he trying to join in the conversation?
Yeah.
Hey, it was up, guys.
He wasn't watching the movie. He was just there, just talking to us, yes.
That's weird.
This 12-year-old in the middle of the night. And Orc was like, well, wait a minute. Like, how old are your parents? He's like, my dad's like 41. He's like, I think my mom's 36. I'm like, wow, I could like date your mom.
Oh, Jesus.
That was the last thing I said to them before we left. I was like, say hi to your mom for me.
Oh,
wow. That's the strange life, I guess, if you're a pro gamer like Orc.
That's sad. I mean, it's sad that I'm older than his mom.
Yeah.
Man, most of the kids we played with on Friday the 13th their balls hadn't dropped yet, and they were like you know how people will put like, oh, badass son of a bitch, and then they'll put like the year they were born, and be like, badass son of a bitch, like 99,
You're like, oh my God.
Christ, dude. Like, why aren't you? First of all, you shouldn't be playing this game. Second of all, you shouldn't be up at 3 a.m.
Isn't it great hearing their prepubescent voices cussing you out? Oh, you motherfucker! Like that's what this kid. Like this kid wasn't cussing us out, but I imagine there's plenty of that going on.
Yeah. That's that's a big part of it. Yes.
It's a weird age we live in.
That's the whole Call of Duty thing too, though. Is those kids play that?
And that's what it was. Like that kid wanted to play that with Orc. That's what he was waiting for. He wanted Orc to play Call of Duty with him.
Did he?
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Did Orc go play Call of Duty afterward?
I assume, because I eventually, it was like 3:30 in the morning for me, so I says, okay, I'll see you guys, I'm going to bed. So I assume that's what he did. He jumped on. He wanted Orc to play Call of Duty.
Oh, wow.
It's just like a weird, just a weird society we live in. Because Orc was saying something like, Orc's like, because Orc's like, I can't even like ask you for a picture because it sounds weird. But I would like to know what you look like to put a face to the name or face to the voice I'm hearing.
No, don't. Yeah, I wouldn't even go down that road.
And Orc's like, but it's too weird and stuff. It's like, yeah.
So anyway,
online actions not rated by ESRB.
This 12-year-old sending me a picture of himself.
We told him about our channel, so maybe he'll start making comments on Sausage Factory.
That's cool. That work's keeping weird hours these days. I don't ever know when he's awake.
Yeah, I'm up all night tonight anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's going to be one of those nights. I don't really mind, though. Anyway, I guess we should try to wrap this up. We'll return for some remarks on the movie before we move on.
Sure.
So, yeah, I'm glad you liked it, because it was one that I recommended and had thought of. And I know that we didn't talk too much about it before we went on to other things, but I mean, it still, I think, was a movie that was worth discussing. I especially like the acting in it. Again, I think the scenes between Oscar Isaac, Jessica Chastain are really good. Albert Brooks is always get a kick of seeing him and stuff. And the guy that played the DA, although he's not in everything, David Oyelowo or something. I'm not sure. It's kind of like I think it's like a Nigerian name actually. He's a British. Yeah. He's British Nigerian. He's good. But yeah, I like their end conversation and stuff because he's just saying, well, now if you get all this off the ground, money, you can even have political influence. And then he's just like, okay, but I can't have you looking over my shoulder. And they basically, he's just saying basically, I'm open to you bribing me and making this going away if you help support my political ambitions. So, again, he's a moral man, but he still has to play the game, and he's willing to do it that way. So he's more moral than others, but it's still like he's coming up in this world full of corruption and stuff where he still is susceptible to a bit of it, and he's accepted that, and he's okay with that. But, yeah, the tragic storyline of his worker, the guy who had fled from the police twice, because he does track him down and convince him and say, I can help you, but only if you turn yourself in. I'll pay for your lawyer, your fire, but I will still help you and stuff. And then they're going to turn him over to the police. He runs again. And then finally, at the end, he has the confrontation where it seems like he wants to shoot him, but then he just decides to kill himself, which I think is, wow. How much jail time are you going to look at? Okay, so you're driving a truck and guys rob it, and you try to defend yourself with a gun you're illegally carrying. Is that going to ruin your life? Are you going to do hard time?
I agree.
I don't know why he killed himself. It seems like he probably could have, only done a few years.
I don't know why
he has this high-powered lawyer.
I don't know why he went so crazy to begin with, but I guess he's just...
Yeah. I guess part of it is he just had some sort of mental breakdown. He had, like, PTSD after the first time, right? He clearly had PTSD after the first hijacking and wasn't fit to go back to work. And but then he just gets all this mixed up where he gets really mad at his employer because, as he said, well, here now, my life is ruined, but you're getting what you want. But at the same time, he doesn't know about all the stuff he had to do to get there, all the hoops he had to jump through, and all the people he had to deal with, and compromises he had to make, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just over the edge, and I don't know. Well, the first time I watched the movie, I really thought he was going to try to shoot him. I was really quite taken aback when he just decides to kill himself. I thought maybe he would even kill Jessica Chastain or something. But, try to.
Yeah.
Now you live with it, but his suicide's fairly abrupt.
Yeah.
But
I feel like if he had just maybe not ran the first time, just explained to the cops what's going on, he would have probably gotten some sort of a sentence, but his boss has some pull, so he probably could have got him off with community service or something like that.
Service, a fine, something, but he's just. Is that part of being an immigrant too, where he just feels like he has to run from the cops? Is that some of it too? He's some sort of Hispanic type immigrant, probably has a deep distrust for the cops, so he just feels like he has to run from them.
Yeah, maybe he's illegal, but I wouldn't think that.
Maybe
he would. I wouldn't think that a Bell would let him drive the truck if he was.
Yeah, exactly. Because I don't think he could have been illegal. Because you're right. Like Abel's too careful. He's too by the numbers, and I don't think he'd be able to hide it either. So I don't think that. But yeah, part of me just feels like he was suffering from PTSD. He probably has some ingrained distrust and fear of the police. So it makes a certain amount of sense. But yeah, at the end, I was just sort of surprised that he just chose to shoot himself. Because I'm thinking, even though you would get added to your sentence for resisting arrest and running away, it still couldn't be that. It doesn't have to like ruin your whole life, man. But he's just a mess by the end and decides to poignant moment where he just walks right by the body without even really looking at it to plug up the hole in the tank.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, there's another casualty of business.
Yeah, that is true. I didn't think about that. How casually he walks over the body.
Well, I guess that's the other like thing about his professionalism is that even though he wants to be moral and right, it's not necessarily out of any sort of compassion. Like, as he goes through things, it's not like because he's like living in this world where he knows that people are cruel and he expects them to be cruel and he'll deal with it. But, it doesn't lead him to want to be kind. Like, he's fair and he's good, but he's not kind. He's not compassionate. Like, I don't think he was too distraught over the whole thing at the end. He's still, it was an unfortunate thing that happened and it doesn't look good for his business. But part of me thinks, and he says he knew the guy for a long time, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe getting guns involved just makes it more complicated. Kind of not that I don't want people to die, but
yeah, and that's what I mean. He was more pragmatic necessarily than moral, as we see him go through the thing. And as we said, it's what's interesting about the movie to me is because certain scenes you feel really sympathetic towards him, and other scenes you feel really almost put off by him. He almost seems sociopathic in some ways with his, he's just so focused. He's just so obsessed and stuff. And he's so single-minded. He's not going to let anything get in his way. But at the same time, we're thinking, well, he's doing it the right way. But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I think he's not a guy that has much compassion, really.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you think, well, this is, again, a product of the world he's in. He's just like, what he's learned, what he believes is, you work hard and that's that. Like when he's giving the speech to the people he wants to do the selling for him and stuff, and he's telling them about the buy contact and stuff like that, and he's if one of them like laughs, he's like, "This isn't funny. I'm not making a joke." And he's like, "If you don't close, you'll lose your job. So take this seriously." Which is very professional, but it's also like you couldn't have done anything to reassure them. The whole thing is just so professional, but it's cold. He's very cold.
Well, yeah, they even beat up the salesman, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, that's right. Again, to like intimidate him, but we don't really see any like repercussions of that. He just, they beat up the salesman and dump him somewhere. And at first you're thinking, oh, they're dumping him somewhere, they're gonna kill him, but they just leave him, just I guess to be like a intimidation or whatever like that. And there's not like any scene between him and like talking to him or trying to make him feel better, or, apologizing or anything. He's obviously mad about it, but more because it's against him. It's against him and his company, what he stands for. Definitely an interesting character study because you see somebody that's very driven and in many ways very admirable, but in other ways you're kind of he is kind of sketchy and disturbing in a way. But yeah, it's just one more angle of looking at like the harsh world they're in this violent world with all this violence going around. He's just one more person trying to make his way, et cetera, et cetera. And I just always thought it was a really interesting story. It's got slower pace and stuff, doesn't have a lot of action going on, but I just think it's a fairly in-depth story. And like I said, he's a good character, and I like the stuff between him and his wife and stuff. So even though the title at the time I thought was kind of misleading, now I get that it's not. So as I said, after having some time to think about it after the first time I saw it, I definitely liked it. And seeing it again, it just confirmed, that I think it's a really strong movie. And as I said, I've been anticipating the next stuff that Shandor is going to come out with. He's got something called Triple Frontier that's supposed to come out in 2018, and then something else that doesn't have a title yet for 2019, but I can't really find any information on either. But I'm definitely going to keep. He's a good director.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a little while since he's done anything, but
yeah.
Yeah, this is one that a few people had actually recommended to me, and I wasn't even aware it existed until
Yeah.
recently. So I'm glad I finally got to watch it.
Yeah. Plus, I've always had a fascination with the New York of the 70s and 80s, the crime-filled urban environment and stuff. Uh, that in some ways we've never really moved past, even though New York has changed so much. It's funny, even if you watch the Daredevil show is set now, but they do their best to show us the old Hell's Kitchen. Like, people don't even say Hell's Kitchen anymore because that's what it was when Daredevil came up, really, in the 60s. Like, Hell's Kitchen in the 60s, that was rough. That was the real deal and stuff. Nowadays, and they do the same thing with the Luke Cage show. It's all about Harlem, and it's very much about Harlem. And again, as far as I know, Harlem's not nearly as rough as it used to be.
I think Harlem's like the majority, like rich white people nowadays.
Yeah, I've heard it's gotten very gentrified and stuff,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, look, the history of Harlem, and I'm living a piece of it. Yeah, so like Harlem's really not what it was, and they put a little bit of that into the show too, because they try. Yeah, no, they really do try to do the Harlem and black stuff, because actually being black is a big part of Luke Cage's character. It's not just like he does feel a certain amount of pride and responsibility and stuff for the neighborhood. And he even has a meeting when the first time he meets Danny in Defenders. Like, he's upset because some kid that's in his neighborhood that got roped into working for bad guys is doing like cleanup of a crime scene. It's part of his job is to like go in and get rid of the bodies and stuff like that. And Iron Fist winds up, grabbing him and slamming against the wall to interrogate him, and then Luke Cage comes up and is like, "What are you doing?" Like, beating up on like this, poor black kid and stuff, and so they get a little of that across, but it's actually done quite well. As I said, that has always been a part of Luke Cage's character. It's not like he has some sort of agenda. It's simply, he's unapologetically black, which is, refreshing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's good that the show's like that. Like, all the main characters on the Luke Cage show are black, and I think it's a pretty good representation of the area and stuff. I wouldn't know, but people seem to like the show. That show was probably the slowest for me. It took about 4 episodes before I thought anything good happened in that show. Still good though. But yeah, I'll always be really interested in sort of the rough, dirty, crime-ridden New York that existed in the 70s and 80s. And I don't know, could always come back, I guess. But yeah, I just always really like gritty urban environments, urban decay, all that stuff. My favorite comic book heroes are the street levels. I like Daredevil and Moon Knight and stuff because they're right in the thick of it. I like the old noir tales from the 30s and 40s and stuff. Those are some of my favorite stuff. It's street level stuff, and this movie is not exactly that. It's kind of to the side of that, but you still get a bit of it, and I liked it. So yeah, at the time, I think that's why I was initially disappointed. I was expecting something a little more street level instead of this guy that's actually a very well-to-do, up-and-coming businessman. But you get some of the mixed street stuff mixed in with it too. Definitely a very interesting movie. And as I said, love Jessica Chastain, and she's just really good in this role, and very attractive without going out of her way. Like, they're not doing any scenes of her like in skimpy clothes or her trying to seduce anybody. She's just very attractive in a very just sort of forceful way.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. I don't have to see, bra and panties shot,
and we get that they're even though they have their problems, they're still a pretty tight couple. We didn't need some sex scene; it would have just slowed the movie down, really. I'm not always critical of sex scenes in movies, but it is true that I'm sort of an all or nothing person. I'm just like, I would just rather watch porn if I want to get off.
I agree.
That's why I could never go to a strip club. I'm like, I can't touch any of them. What the hell am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
So in many ways, most of the time, like, people always act like having stuff that's sexy is an important part of, like, really not to me. I mean, yes, I guess it's good to have good looking pretty characters when they do their stuff, but I really don't need more than that. Like, I get that sometimes sex scenes are integral to the plot, sometimes they're a big part of it and stuff, but so many movies just have the obligatory sex scene because they can. But I'm not the type of person that's really going to say, oh, that elevated the movie for me or that made it better and stuff. Usually I'm just sort of want them to get on with it. And anytime I find myself aroused watching like a mainstream movie, I always feel kind of like guilty and embarrassed about it.
Yeah.
Like I should just be watching, you know, if I want to do that, porn or whatever, you know, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
And like
You know,
movies that have like kissing scenes. Because I always want to like, you know, just look away when there's kissing going on. It doesn't make me uncomfortable. It makes me impatient. Big kiss. I
yeah.
will say they do cross a line and get right to a good thing. But remember the 2001 movie The Hole with Thora Birch?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a kiss in that movie where she kisses the guy, and it's like one of the hottest kisses I've ever seen. And it was kind of amazing when I saw it. But at the same time, I don't really know what that means. But I will say, like, I was like, well done, Jesus Christ. But, you know, so I'll give
Would
it
they play Spin the
points for
Bottle
that.
or
'Cause like
something?
I said, and there's kissing going on in movies. Like I said, I just want them to get on with it. I'm like, okay, whatever. There's the kiss. Can we get on with the plot now and stuff? And to a certain extent, I can feel about that with sex scenes too. So yeah. So my original point: this movie didn't need a sex scene. It wouldn't have ruined it, but we didn't need it. So I kind of applaud it for not going that route. Like, there's some parts where he does this. You know, they do show some affection towards each other, but we don't need, you know, some big love-making scene or anything. And again, I think it's important because it's part of his character, so we don't really see him being tender. Like, but like he has like one moment with them in the entire movie where they're like looking at the house, and I think he's like sort of hugging one, saying like, "What do you think?" The rest, like, he's very detached from all that because it's all again about his being driven towards this mission. So I think that was definitely a good choice for the movie.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think next week we're going to be doing what, In a Glass Cage? Is that right?
Yeah, Spanish film characters, but it's not as weird as it sounds. It makes sense. You know, it's funny. We always kind of accept with a grain of salt when foreigners are speaking English, but if foreigners are speaking another foreign language that isn't their language, it always feels a little off. It's like, why are these Germans here all speaking Spanish? Well, it's because they're in Spain. It makes sense. And not to mention, it's the same thing. Plenty of times we watch a movie in English about foreign people, and we understand that while their dialogue is in English, we're supposed to assume that they're speaking their own language. So it could basically be the same thing for at least parts of In a Glass Cage, where we have these German characters speaking Spanish. Well, maybe they're just for the Spanish audience is speaking Spanish. But anyway, not to get bogged down. Something Jay and I always had a fascination with well before we even decided to do this show, but we knew we were working to the show, is movies that are sort of known for being disturbing, having disturbing content. This is one of those movies that usually makes the list of most disturbing movies. So yeah. And there's probably others down the line that we'll want to explore too, but this will be the first one in a while, I guess. So that was one of the reasons where we both had a fascination. You'd seen it before. I hadn't seen it until a few days ago. I was really impressed. It's really, really interesting movie. Talk about there for sure.
And it's on Shudder. If anybody has Shudder out there, you can watch it there.
Yeah, yeah, that's how I watched it.
I'm sure it's available other places as well, but I know it's on there.
Yeah, it was a of, and as I said, as I got more interested in some of these movies that are disturbing, I noticed that it would be on lists and stuff, and there's quite a few on those. And as you go down some of those, as I've gone down some of these lists, you know, it's always the difference. There's exploitation and just trying to shock you, or is there actual point to it and something that gives it artistic merit? This is one of those movies where I feel, yes, definitely, it's not just about shock. It's actually, you know, there's a real story there. There's real points. There's real theme, etc. I'll into all that next week, unless something changes. But for now, going forward, Cage, unless you hear different.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, we thank you for putting up with us for this 2+ hours.
Yeah. Hope you didn't mind some digressions about TV shows and such. We did heavy metal last week, so you know.
Yeah.
We always like to
music, so
throw some other things in there. Yeah. Always throw some different content in there to keep it variety.
We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.